top of the monitor.
In a minute.
Fellas, we're live.
I'll just take my vitamin D pills. Hello.
Welcome in, everybody. How's it
Episode
going,
what? 500? What episode?
Episode 36 tonight, boys.
I'll get it right here.
I was brought here against my will, as threatened.
You want to be here? You know, you want to be here.
Yeah, you volunteered. I didn't even have to
did it. Yeah, I was going to say he didn't say who threatened it. It was himself. But
I felt bad after like 7 times in a row. I was like, I'll be on the next one.
Yeah.
Like, sure, like it's your second favorite podcast to be on, but you know, whatever. We get it. You're big time now. We get it, dude.
True.
Let's not say second, okay? Dorcas Hour is there, and I'm still waiting on the radio podcast.
Yeah, so
the Dorcas Hour
is a good call. We are now officially, much to my chagrin, it gives me no pleasure to say this, but we are now officially the longest running Dark and Darker podcast in existence.
The number one.
Mostly due to the stubbornness.
Yeah. If this is what it takes to be number one, did we ever really win?
No, absolutely not. And I don't think we ever claimed to at any point. So rest in peace to the darkest hour, but a new era is upon us, the Dorkest Hour, which I think is going to be an absolute blast. So for those of you that are just finding out for the first time, I'm guessing it's very few of you, but the Darkest Hour, the longest running pod, hosted by Soma, Jay, and Donnie originally. And then as of late, Donnie's kind of dipped out to do other things, but he came back for what was their final episode. And Soma basically chronicled the saga of Iron Mace and his tenure there, and then basically said that he is done playing the game, but he likes the crew that he's podding with and wants to continue podcasting. So the Darkest Hour is becoming the Dorkest Hour, which should be a blast. And as of right now, we are slated to be guests on the Dorkest Hour, I believe, in early April. So stay tuned for more on that. What do you got, Ken?
I didn't officially agree to anything yet because I have stand playtest coming out, I think April 1st or whatever. So, you know, I'm soft locked in on that one. Just
it's
for the
fine.
record.
You were optional anyway. I mean, let's not.
Okay.
Damn.
Ken and I are kind of Ken and I are kind of
interchangeable. If you can't make it, can you still send the biceps?
I'm just have your pictures.
Ken and I are kind of interchangeable because we agree on 99.9% of things. So like if I'm not here, if you've asked me to be on for like 6 weeks and I haven't been here, it's just like, what do you need me for? Ken's there.
True.
He's already gonna say what I'm thinking.
Why is that guy wearing sunglasses inside?
Dude, it's very funny because when you were hosting the Tavern Talk,
stream.
When you're hosting the Tavern Talk the other day, I was like, holy shit, all these questions are just like ripped from my stream. But I know they're not ripped from my stream. We ask very similar questions a lot and have very similar takes on the state of Dark and Darker.
To be fair, and people still haven't seemed to understand this, even though I've clarified it like 4 times. The questions were taken from the February Q&A channel that was opened on the Discord. And then Grayson and I went through and basically summarized them into more digestible bites because there were a lot of questions that were like repeat questions, and you know, people like, when are you removing CMM? It's like, we haven't decided we're removing CMM, so we're not going to ask that question.
So when are you like removing like, you know, Goblin Kid? When people just like make those questions and assume something and kind of like put words in your mouth. I hate when people do that.
I mean, I know most of the time when they're doing that, it's just they're mostly trolling, but it's like, I know you don't actually expect me to respond to this, so don't get mad if I don't.
I mean, I like that question. The Korean streamer asked SDF, and he said, when is Wyvern going to be less boring to farm? Like, what a weird question to ask the dev. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
You didn't make that up? That's a real question.
No, that was a real question the Korean VTuber asked SDF.
Okay.
I mean,
Kind of a point though.
No, come on. What the fuck?
we did get cat girls.
Killed Wyvern. I still haven't killed Wyvern.
I've never killed Wyvern.
You have to go through like 50 minutes of being bored before you get there. That's like the hardest part.
No, that was the old time, right? Now
you just jump, you know.
Yeah.
Jump into the pit. Yeah.
For
I
now.
just can't be bothered.
It still sucks.
I started learning the fight, and I got like halfway through it, and then by the time I finally got like halfway through it, I died, and I just was like, I just don't care. I don't care enough to finish this. There's the promise of rewards at the end is not enough to get me interested in doing this over and over again.
I learned it on Warlock. It took me a while to learn it on Warlock, and the second I finally got it down on Warlock, like the Bard video came out where they were just killing it 3 times as fast.
Yeah,
I
like
was like this.
like 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, love this. But yeah, Wyvern sucks.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
on
it's a
that
cool
list.
boss. But
So does
it was cool.
Banshee.
I mean, every boss, if you do it 2,000 times, is gonna be a bit boring. But Banshee,
I mean,
yeah, Banshee's a weird
Spectral,
one.
Spectral
Banshee
is
is
a
a
really
weird
cool
one.
fight.
Because
no matter
Banshee's
what.
is actually a really cool fight. But like,
No, Banshee's a cool fight on paper, and then when you actually try the fight with the game that we have, it's not. It's no longer a fun fight. It's great when it's all written down. It sounds like it's like a cool encounter. Oh wow, yeah! You use the audio, and you got to catch the ghosts, and then the ghosts fly out of range. It's just there's a lot of shitty stuff. I think. Fight.
all right, let's get into this goddamn podcast.
Yeah.
Arcane, take us somewhere. All right, get us into a good subject. Let's get meaty. I can already feel some hot takes on the way.
Oh God.
One of the biggest hot fixes to drop in recent memory just came out. There were a ton of bug fixes, a lot of which were quite good, some others not so memorable. Like fixed an issue where friend recovery might not work properly. I didn't really have an issue with that. Maybe you guys did, but apparently it was broken. But
yeah, if you looted your teammate and then went down to HR, you like wouldn't get your gear back sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah, if you queued into duos and I died on layer 1 and Ken took a red and nobody looted me, I would still get no gear back because he took a red instead of a blue.
I don't
Nothing,
gotta worry
not a
about
single
that
piece of
anymore.
gear.
Ah,
Yeah.
True.
And that was a bug since the start of wipe, which is great. So that's a good fix.
Okay. Yeah, I had never noticed that one.
There was
Yeah.
also sometimes the actual friend recovery part of that is you would pick up the gear of your teammate and go down, and sometimes they wouldn't get it sent back to their goblin recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd have to actually give it back to them. They fix that.
Gotcha. Well, at any rate, lots and lots of bug fixes. Too many to go through. Are there any other ones? Odin, you're pretty close to this. Any bug
Spellbook.
fixes?
Wall fix.
That-
Spellbook doesn't
that
wall flap
Spellbook
anymore.
wall fix.
How did that? Wait, what even? Every time they do like something to the spellbook, they add some kind of weird bug to it, and they have to fix it. I'm like, how does this keep happening? I'm glad they fix it, but usually it takes
Did
way
they-
longer for them to fix it. It's just crazy. Like I'm sure next patch they'll do like some crystal sword animation change, and then it'll mess up the spellbook again, and then I'm gonna be hitting walls and getting angry. But
Well, that one was definitely because of the addition of the melee bonk.
Yeah,
and
I
having
agree,
like
I
the
agree.
two hand over, like that was obviously they had to be right next to each other on the problem because that's what caused it. And so now we don't have it anymore. So that's great. I love not punching walls.
I'm glad their ears to the ground, and they could like see these things and fix them in a timely manner, because I feel like that was something that was gonna like take months for them to actually notice and fix, and I'm glad it wasn't. So
Yeah, that came in 80-1, right? That was the
Mhm.
extra fix.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. Cool. But anything else stand out in the hotfix 80 list?
I mean, bunny hopping is fixed. Hot swapping is fixed.
He's talking
Panther
about
head
bug fixes.
Yeah,
hitbox.
we were talking.
Oh, I was assuming all those were bugs.
No,
I mean, you're not wrong.
Exploits.
Those
yeah,
are
exploits aren't bugs.
Those are
That's fine.
definitely.
But we could dive into that because like that's like meaty.
I'm excited.
I mean,
That's
they
pretty
fixed
meaty.
they fixed the problems with like certain spell interactions with like sorcerer and warlock. There were some issues with like escapes that weren't working, like ropes and stuff got fixed. There's a bunch of all in all, there's a lot of really good bug fixes, but nothing that I can like remember it going into this patch where I was like, holy shit, finally they fixed that. Aside from spellbook.
Here's a fun
Alright.
one. Fixed an issue in some Ruins modules where, no, not that one. Where is it? The floating one. Oh, in Ruins modules where players could climb walls and appear to be floating above the module. That's not one I ever saw either.
That one I never saw. Either.
Yeah, saw that on Reddit. It's like the guys that would be out of bounds, but above like out of crow area, and they'll be like out of the
Yeah.
You've seen it probably on the ice caves videos where guys like teleport up when they're in the ice abyss and they're like above the map, walking out of the terrain and staring down at you.
Yeah, that shit was annoying.
Yeah, it's rare, and it's one of those like, oh, you're clearly abusing things, and footage of this will make its way around, and people will get. Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah. Oh, Jacob just pointed out in chat here one really important one. They finally fixed the well, I think the druid
Panther hitbox for the head.
hitbox, yeah. Yep. That's
How
pretty
did that bug work? I'm not familiar. It's like it didn't have a head hitbox, or it was much smaller than it appeared.
Pretty
From what I
much.
heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
super tiny, if it even existed.
Yeah, you could like the Panther hitbox was like this. Only this part of it was actually a hitbox, so you'd be able to like swing right through the other side of it.
Yeah, I love hitting the ground.
But yes, so one of the big topics, bunny hopping. How's everybody feel
Yeah.
about it?
I feel like
think
my
it's
take's
that-
a little different, or maybe not completely, but I might be of like the quote unquote elite level of players that thinks bunny hopping should be gone. I think it's just an unnecessary prerequisite for new players to like have to figure out, and it's just another barrier to entry for like an average player to become competent over time. And I think the game's healthier without it. And
Well,
sorry, okay,
no,
please.
I was just going to say that on top of that, that's not even just a barrier of entry. It's something that fundamentally, it's not. It's just like from the idea of what it's doing. Iron Mace would have to look at it as a crutch that they now have to balance all of the caster classes and anything that's moving with a channeled ability. They have to do it for everything, including the idea of bunny hopping. Like the fundamental game, but like they didn't build all the classes with the idea that, yeah, you're going to spam caster spells while maintaining movement and jumping backwards. And so now they have to like go through the whole effort of just scrap it and keep working on the classes without the bunny hop mechanic involved, because it just changes everything once you're working on that.
Well, not to mention
does that make
your
sense?
hardware. Yeah, like the amount of frames your rig can generate would impact your ability to do it successfully, along with the binding of jump. So if you didn't have a good PC that was generating enough frames, you didn't have your jump bound to your mouse wheel, you were automatically at a disadvantage to even be able to execute a bunny hop properly. And I know there are a handful of people that have that timing down that have played a lot, but that certainly doesn't describe the average or casual player in most cases. So yeah,
Not to mention if you live in an area where your ping is above 50,
exactly.
you're at a huge disadvantage. So yeah.
All right.
I'm with Boss on
I'll play. Go ahead, Ed.
I was just to say I'm with Boss on it being a point of they have to basically balance the game around it. And being somebody who has always enjoyed movement shooters, Shoot Mania is one of my favorite games, and it's entirely based around how well you can move. I generally like movement mechanics, and I think there's a place for movement mechanics in the game. I think designing map geometry to interact more with jumping and just make precise movement more important would be great. But having bunny hopping be a core mechanic does completely destroy the game in a sense, because melee is not really benefiting from bunny hopping. So you just end up in this like really frustrating scenario where you're just chasing someone who's the onus of losing the fight is on them, and that doesn't feel good. So removing bunny hopping and then reassessing movement as a whole and looking at chase mechanics maybe as a way to adjust the balance, I think is a more healthy way to design it.
I agree. And like I just want to have a little caveat that like I'm a wizard, warlock, cleric player. I play like some of the classes that benefit the most from bee hopping, and I still think like it's good that it's gone. But yeah, also so about what you take.
I mean, I have a mixed take. I think you guys all bring up good points, and like a lot of things that involve balancing with Dark and Darker, when they're gone, it probably sets a better, more equal environment to learn in. But at the same time, I will miss watching some of the best players in the world bunny hopping with like a longbow or a wizard, and just clutching fights and just taking it down. They make it look way more competitive. It looks more like Apex and Counter Strike. And I do think that there's something to be said about the skill gap that it increased in combat. But Odin is right. The onus of the fight, winning or losing, was often on the player, bunny hopping sideways or backward, keeping their momentum. But it was also cool to see Vincent and a couple of the guys like bunny hopping on barbarians, throwing Franciscas or like pulling their felling out. And some of that I mean, we can make the same argument with hot swapping. It's something that if you knew how to do it and you used it well, you had that upper edge in PvP that everybody kind of strives for, but probably for the best that it's gone. So I'll just say it was a fun, competitive thing for a while, and a lot of people chose not to learn it for whatever reason, and now it's gone. So it's probably a safer, better game.
I I know you were saying about it being skill expressive, right? And like maybe to a small degree you're not wrong, but it's always felt to me that it might be the opposite of skill expression because it gets you out of situations that you get into by making a bad choice. It's like a get out of jail free card in some spots. Like you position badly, but then you have a way to get out of it for not maybe not for free, but when you shouldn't, and you should be punished for that. And like I would argue that would be the opposite of skill expression. You made a bad choice that should result in you dying, but since like this unintended game mechanic is in the game, you don't get punished for it.
I mean, there's mechanical expression, and then there's strategic.
It's not.
It's fine. Yeah, I agree with it. You could look both ways. It's gone either way. And SDF has already seemingly indicated that he wants to redesign movement speed as a meta, right? Like that's basically what he said. Is that
I mean,
that might
easily
be
one of the most exciting things from Tavern Table was the fact that SDF is now, instead of having to like kind of be in control of everything and micromanage, he's letting the teams kind of do their thing so that he can focus on the game mechanics. So Terry even pointed out that SDF is not really knowledgeable or experienced with those aspects of the design, but he is knowledgeable and experienced with the like core mechanics parts of the design. So having somebody whose expertise is focused on that, going back to focusing on those things, is promising, and especially the fact that hot swapping got fixed and bunny hopping got removed within a day of him working on it. So that tells me that we're only just now seeing the fruits of that, and it may take a little while before we actually see more. That could be cope. Maybe, it won't make a huge difference, but it's promising in my opinion. We'll see.
So bunny hopping wasn't like a game breaker for me. Like I had fun doing it. Like when I played against it, it didn't feel that bad. But like I could see if you're like a new player coming in and running into that, it can create a moment of frustration that may cause you to log off and maybe not log back in. So it's probably a net positive. I think it's probably easier for Iron Mace to go forward without it as a factor. So that's kind of always been my take. Is I think the foundations are better now that it's gone than like if they had to consider that every time they add something to the game.
Right.
Now that feels like a dead for me.
It's more like what I would consider to be a crutch rather than an actually skill expressive in addition to the game. It's just something that only a person of the game can use, and they can use it better with better computers. Like there's so many factors that make it just less fun to play against. Whereas, and to put in like a counterpoint to it, when you're fighting somebody and they hit a perfect block, like that's something that requires like enough game sense and knowledge and awareness to hit that, as far as like your enemy's swing speed, what weapon they have. Like there's a lot of factors that go into that make an actual, what I think is a very important skill expressive mechanic. It feels really good in melee combat, but it takes effort. It's not just a free like, oh, I'm just jumping around. I didn't bind my mouse wheel. Now I can just, it's fun to do. But I also see how that's the same problem on the side of, you can't balance the game around perfect blocking. You got to remove it. So you can't do the same with bunny hopping, and just got to scrap.
I think there's a world where you could potentially balance bunny hopping by, because the thing that you mentioned there is that like perfect blocking requires effort, whereas bee hopping is pretty like once you understand how to use it, it's not like something that you are having a push and pull.
It's just another tool. Yeah, it's very easy to jump in.
I could see a world where like there's a tool that people have that like stops your momentum completely if they catch you with it airborne. But I think that would be kind of hard to execute. But I mean, I could see like, arguing, on the side of, yes, bee hopping is cool and it's nice to have an extra tool. It could be something where they just like, if you get hit with like a thrown weapon while you're bee hopping, you just boom, like slow to a crawl, like you get hit by Achilles. So you have to actually use your brain and not try to bee hop somebody while you're getting access thrown at you, maybe.
Yeah, and the tag on to that a little bit. If they wanted to make bee hopping work, like they could have just put a cooldown on it. Like you could get one bee hop off every 10 seconds instead of like just being able to spam it every time you jump. So you had to like actually manage when you do it in like a good situation and not just like do it every time you hit a bandage. So I mean that's
SDF brings up a good point on the jumping, like with the way the movement mechanics, the momentum staying whenever you're traveling through the air. So you're always jumping when you're switching between weapons or inventory space or anything like that. So that slowdown is, the slowdown animation on that stuff could stand to just be kind of, I don't know. It seems like it's a weird addition that, like he says, new players don't know that, but new players don't know a lot of stuff.
It's definitely like a bunny hop light that we're all jumping and we're all pulling out the weapon and we're all drinking the potion for that like little bit of move speed gain, that's often the difference between a win or a loss.
So, and I've always hated in games like if you log into a game for the first time and play it, the default settings just like aren't I'm not gonna say the most optimal way to play, but like not a viable way to play. Like, if you want to be viable in the world of bee hopping, you have to like go watch a video about bee hopping, what settings to get. I gotta put on mouse speed, I gotta put my max frames at 5,000, and then then I could bee hop, and now I could like compete with the best. And
800 by 600 resolution.
Yeah, that stuff always feels bad in games where I feel like you should be able to just log into the game, hit the play button, have default settings, and still be like on an even playing field. And bee hopping was not the case.
It's about being intuitive. The more intuitive a skill is, the better it feels in the game, and the more accessible it is. But you can also make something intuitive without making it easy. It's just challenging.
Right.
For sure.
And also, like, we're always gaining new things, right? Like, the more modules they add, the more class perks and skills, the more weapons, the more minor artifacts. All of these things are increasing how much new players and existing players have to learn. So just like League of Legends, if you think about Dark and Darker, like, 2 or 3 years from now, that's like 12 or 13 classes, 4 or 5 maps, like 9 bosses, a bunch of new shit. All of that makes it harder to get into, but that's not
zero new wizard spells.
Holy water still
Who needs
exists.
wizards? Play Sork, my boy. That's a complete class. But, all right. Next up, what we got?
Well, speaking
There's
of
a lot of
magic,
potatoes in this patch.
Yeah, so still under the system category of balance changes, we mentioned bunny hop. We talked a little bit about hot swapping. I think that was a great change. One of the big things that was immediately noticeable if you play any casting class is that they updated the magical damage bonus curve so that it matches the new PDB curve, the physical damage bonus curve. And what that meant for my arena kit, and I saw similar stories in the Discord, was that my 58% magic damage bonus kit went down to 29% magic damage bonus. So it seems like everyone's MDB was effectively halved. And holy hell, can you feel it?
It's rough. It's rough out here if you're, at least for wizards, I think clerics too. I think Sork's base numbers are high enough that it's still okay. I think Warlock's damage is mostly based on their true damage, so it probably feels okay in Warlock. But I definitely
got the curse buff too on the initial.
But like I said, most of the damage isn't coming from their MDB bonus. It's coming from their flat true and their curses. So I really feel it on cleric and I really feel on wizard is what I feel it on. And holy crap, it's a huge difference. Like it's basically a 50% nerf on everything. And sure, they give some spells better scaling, but it doesn't feel like it makes up for it at all. I'm on top of like losing bee hopping in the same patch. It's a hard time being a wizard right now. Yeah, so
I took my Sork just to test it out and just to a Squire kit dungeon normal, and I was testing out some of the new perks. So I tried to run a Sork without any spell merging at all, and just to kill a normal skeleton was taking 6 or 7 spells, and it was like this is not viable, right? And that was with trying to stack a little bit of will. I think I ended up going in with like 13% or 14% magic damage bonus, and I wore a pendant that had like 1 additional or 1 true on it. But just running normal Sork spells, trying to kill a mob, felt like I was fighting a sub boss, and it did not feel good at all.
Yeah, I went playing through. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, they did this like to try and keep it online with the physical damage bonus, but what you don't realize is physical damage bonus is multiplied by like the base damage of the weapon it's on.
Right.
And like your longbow is 44 damage, your Bardiche is 60 whatever damage, and like your spellbook is a flat 7. Like so we're doing these multipliers based off of weapon damage, and it just makes no sense to keep them the same as physical damage bonus.
The spells also have their own base. And
I was going to say the spells do have their own splash and base, and
they're not 60.
The spellbook damage is additive to the base, and then multiplied by the magic power bonus and the attribute bonus. So so like in the case of lower damage base spells, it feels better. But in the case of higher damage base spells, well, I mean, I should say like magic missiles still feels pretty good. because it's mostly scaling with like your true and the base damage from your spellbook.
Right.
But like bigger spells that are supposed to hit harder don't feel as good. But in a way, I wonder if it's like maybe this is veering a little too far from the actual topic of like the numbers themselves. But in conceptually, I like the idea of casters being more like artillery and not in the sense of just like destroying your team with a couple of spells, but like having a ton of tools in their arsenal.
Me too.
And just being able to like use them in quick succession to control the pace of a fight. But it feels like the previous design of the spells was more around just decisive, like 2 fireballs blows up your whole team.
And I agree. I actually think more spells is better. More spells with lower damage is better. But like we've balanced the amount of spells wizards have on a spell memory level based on how powerful they were previously. So like back when we had 7 fireballs, fireball doing 20 damage, could make some sense. But like having 4 fireballs and it doing 20 damage doesn't, make much sense to me.
Well, the thing it made me think initially, because I was using a book too, that's worth mentioning. I took in a book, and granted, it was a weight book, but you still have a catalyst, and that makes a huge difference for just these single non-merged spells. And I'm with you. I'm not advocating for every spell a sorcerer has should be a nuke. That's not what I'm saying. And I do still think that the spear, what's it called? The frost flame spear, and then
Crossfire bolt and flames, frostfire spear and elemental bolt. Yeah, there we go.
An elemental bolt. Those still both feel perfectly fine. They're still plenty strong. But just the like water bolt, eruption, like it took that many hits to hit the skeleton. My first thought was, I wonder if they accidentally set the mobs back to their old magic resist levels, because at one point they tuned them way down, right? Like that wasn't that long ago where they removed a lot of the magic resist from the mobs. Am I going crazy?
Yeah, they went to negative. No, they went to negative 10%. The same with the PDR. A couple of patches back. So they are the same. Mobs have the same damage increased taken when you hit them.
But to his point, it does feel like
it could be. Patch. Yeah. Well, to be fair, it was they were like roughly like around like 25% resist, 25 to 40, and now they went negative 10, and then you lost half of your effective damage on that. But I think it's just a big problem with the addition of the. Basically, it's more of a problem because we're putting more of an emphasis on true, I think. And I don't think we need to put more emphasis on how true functions in the game, because I think true is the problem child of this whole thing. Like, that's where I think it's...
I would argue true should have been gone a year ago, in my opinion.
That goes back to the solo versus trio balance, because in order for casters to like really do well in solos, they need to have very high damage, because otherwise, without being able to rely on teammates, your only real tool against other melee classes or rangers is being able to kill them first, or kill them before they get to you, because in a lot of cases, once they get on top of you, you just die. So like having a ton of true damage and like ramping up the damage a lot is really how the classes work in solo. But if we're thinking about it from a trio perspective, having one character that can just obliterate your entire team behind 2 other people feels like shit. Mm-hmm. So again, that just, like, I know I'm repeating myself here. I really prefer the idea of give them a lot of tools, but don't make them all super powerful, so you don't have this. I mean, Biami's removed, so I don't foresee wizards styling on your entire team anymore. Just for that alone, they're a lot easier to catch, but they still have ways to get away from you. I would like to see more emphasis on utility and control in the fight than damage.
I want more spells like Mud Shield. It's actually I nerfed this patch. We will maybe talk about that later. But like spells like Mud Shield, spells that are like defensive, timing based abilities are really cool. And that's something that could give you more play without just like being a big damage fireball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about that.
Go ahead. I was going to say, with the amount of time I spent in the arena post patch after the MDB changes and playing my swarm damage cleric, it was noticeable, but not that big. Like at the very high end of gear,
Swarm's different.
Yeah, I know it scales really good with the true and doesn't have to do much with the MDB, but it's like on the whole, as far as like spellcaster cleric and the damage with holy strikes, everything on that end was like, I would say it was like 80%. It was still very threatening. Everybody was scattering, and that was with like even while I'm taking a ton of fireballs and things, I'm still getting pounded also in like 2 fireballs. Fire Mastery is still shredding. Like I'm still getting absolutely cooked by the high end, like super geared wizards and everything. I think the other part, if I don't know if we're moving into it soon, but the buff duration changes about that topic. Is that on the list? Is that next or
I was just about to
I was
mention that.
curious. Yeah, because that's a weird change.
On that topic, we were talking about this a little bit off stream, like a few days ago. How I think it's really cool. Like, so when I saw the buff changes, like protection being changed to the 6-second duration, in concept, I like the idea of cleric having like maybe instead of 5 charges with a 20 shield, they just have like 2 charges of a protection spell that basically, I think Ken said it would be cool if it negated the next attack. Because imagine you have a skill shot that doesn't really do anything if you just throw it on somebody without thinking about it. But like if your wizard's about to get clapped by a reckless barb and you hit him with this protection right at the last second, it could save them from certain death and completely swing a fight. That is really interesting because you're making a moment-to-moment decision that, if the barbarian is cognizant of the fact that you have that tool in your arsenal and they're like trying to bait this protection spell out, and then you bait it out, you're not doing anything. That protection spell basically fizzles without any help or doing anything in the fight, and then he goes for the swing after it wears off. There's some counterplay there.
Make it more skill expressive, make it more about timing and decision making, less about just pre-buffing before
I think
you
it's
go door.
The chores.
I think it's like that.
As we talked about it.
They I think it's like that or meant to be like that. I think we're moving towards, like you were saying, a homogenization of buffs being in a factor of less like a 30-second long all stats bonus and more like, a 10-second long, like 20 stats, or just like something that's a major short duration increase that can swing a fight that requires more skill expression. But I think the problem is we got like phase 1 patch again. And I'll refer back to like how Blood Exchange was tweaked when they gave Blood Exchange a massive duration increase in patch number 1 and everybody freaked out. And then patch number 2 comes in where they completely nerfed it to 10% damage. And you're thinking, why didn't you just put those 2 together so people didn't freak out? I feel like we got the first iteration of like the homogenization of some changes to buffs that are coming, because like, holy shit, Bless is useless. Divine Strike is useless. These spells are basically bricked. So I think we got patch number 1 and I'm waiting for patch number 2 in the Iron Mace style of here is the actual changes to the spells that we've been working on. But it's just like a weird thing that it's a weird way that they do stuff. If I take history at its repeating.
Yeah, I agree with Ken. I think the vision, and Odin, you've said this in various shapes and forms as well in the past, like at least with Cleric, they're trying to get away from just being a heal bot where they want all casting classes, not just clerics, but clerics in this example. They want you to have to make a decision in the middle of the fight that's bigger than, do I lesser heal or do I holy light? They want you to decide, oh, should I cast protection? Should I be casting bless mid-combat? Which, in theory, I like, actually, but the juice is not worth the squeeze here. And all they've really done in my book is make it so that it is clearly not worth running 10-spell cleric in the current state. I'm going to run 5-spell and judgment and get way more value out of that. But even if I was to run 10-spell, none of these spells for the juice not being worth the squeeze, none of those spells trump me wanting to cast a holy light or a lesser heal, right? Like there's no reason for me to not heal someone unless I'm out of heals with one of those other spells. The
Counterpoint.
only way, wait, real quick, one last thing, and that's all you. Bind me, okay, fair. But the only way those become viable or worthwhile, in my opinion, is if you drastically reduce the cast time on them. Like if you want them to be this like reflexive, reactive, skill expressive move where, hey, I'm going to decide to throw a protect on my frontliner instead of a lesser heal, then you've got to make it so that you can actually be reactive. And the casting times, unless you're in a freaking like Uber kit, then most of the time it's just not happening. So I think if you are going to turn these dials, you got to give us a little bit better spellcasting speed.
I also thought they were going to tweak will to do double the buff duration or like triple the buff duration. And I think that would be something that they were tweaking because that would be actually viable, especially with the ignite change for wizards. Then it would let wizards still play with ignite. And I'm just saying, like, I don't have to. Your engine's already revved. They just need to do something else. I think, like I said, we got the first half, we got the carrot, or we got the stick, and then the carrot's coming. Maybe, but that's Please, Iron Mace, please.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing that we have to Dark and Darker that is on the market to compare it to is World of Warcraft Arenas. Like, I know that's still pretty far cry because they're two very different combat styles, but as far as the sort of design of some of the skills and how combat interactions go, I think, if we are moving to be on track with more proactive and reactive cooldowns, so to speak, you look at parallels to WoW, where you have your big CDs that you want to use at crucial moments, and maybe it doesn't need to be cooldowns, maybe it just needs to be spell charges, because the counterplay there is then also as the aggressor is paying attention to what the other caster is doing and going, oh, the cleric's about to use a very important cooldown or a very important spell charge. Let me bait this out, back off, wait till it's my turn to fight. It's the same way as right now you wouldn't just fight a barb straight up who has Savage Roar on you when you don't have something to counter that because you're just fighting at a disadvantage for no reason. So I think I am for shorter buff durations. We've talked about this many times off stream as well, as and I'd steal the term from Ken, is a lot of the things in this game feel like you're just doing chores. You got to drink your protection potion. You got to drink your red pot. You got to get your buff going. And this is just things that you were supposed to do before you start a fight. And when it becomes mandatory, it doesn't really feel like you're interacting with the game. It just feels like you're doing a chore. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't contribute anything to the fight, really. Now, in some ways, to counter that, you have things like Spell Predation. Spell Predation is too strong because it pulls everything off. But I like the idea of having an offensive tool that is like, okay, let me rip away some of these buffs that are making the character stronger. And I think there's a place for that in adjusting buff duration and having stronger cooldowns. But who knows? I'm curious to see, Enbal said, I think this is like part one of two for the changes. I think we could potentially see some pretty radical changes to some of the spells.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the only way it makes sense to me, because maybe I'm missing something here, but I did not think Bless. I wasn't dying and be like, Bless. Man, this Bless spell's pissing me off.
A lot of people came to chat like, oh man, how you feeling? They didn't touch me. Like, if I was the problem, they missed the mark entirely. Like the poor 0 to 25 5-spell clerics, they're all shafted. Me, I'm running around with 0 buffs on my bar, man.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Hopefully let them cook. It's the only thing that makes sense that they have some other plans for it, because this change makes no sense without that. Same with protection.
Yeah.
And maybe Divine Strike. I don't know. Divine Strike is a very underrated spell.
I think it feels really bad now that it's so short.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things I was talking about.
6 or 8 seconds.
6.
It's 6. It feels like something that you are meant to cast on someone right as they're about to start fighting, which I guess that's fair enough. It's just, I guess it's another one of those byproducts.
It's right before they quick shot or something, or but that's it.
But it's
really
almost
geared
as bad
to do that.
as casting Ignite and then Hasten and Invis, and by the time you cast Hasten and Invis, your Ignite's gone. So
I mean, I can't even the one thing I'll say, I don't want to dive too much into the balance, especially on the magic side, but having played Wizard on and off, I basically can't solo mobs anymore or Warlord because my Ignite just wears off immediately. It feels barely worth casting most of the time. But I did play Squire Wizard yesterday for 4 hours, and I had a freaking blast. I know maybe it whatever end got rebalanced. I feel like due to the 33% attribute ratio bonus increase on a couple of spells, at least in Squire gear, I had 7 spells, almost universally AoEs, and I was just random trio filling and just flinging spells everywhere, and it still felt fine. But the Ignite thing is an issue. I can't win any trade that I haven't really hurt them. Whereas before, you hit them one fireball. If I go to Ignite, I'm probably just going to win the trade. They're melted and taking damage over time. But I also hope they're cooking a little bit more. A lot of the buffs feel a bit too short.
Now just to touch on this a little bit more, I don't play that much solos. Was Ignite Wizard popular in solos? Because it wasn't popular in duos or trios. I'm just kind of curious.
Well,
targeting.
It was actually pretty popular. It just wasn't. It just wasn't very popular in America. So EU
in HR, no, not for me.
In EU, the meta was actually there. What I started seeing And I get a lot of the information about the EU from like particular streamers that I watch from there. Like when I watch Elite 500 play with certain people or CNG Blade, they started doing a lot of spellbook and ball and dagger wizard to basically just spellbook when you need to be the artillery, and then whenever you need to surprise them, just whip out the ignite, and they do a surprising amount of damage with melt and fire mastery. So I do think it was really strong, but I don't know if that was a target nerf or if it was more of just this sweeping change of like changing buffs as a whole to be more powerful potentially in the future. Hopefully, like we were talking about, them getting buffs to make the juice worth the squeeze. I don't think it was necessarily like OP, but it was kind of the meta.
Yeah,
I mean, touching on that we didn't even talk about bards.
Oh, we still have to go through all of the classes, really. I mean, we just kind of.
Well, I meant like the change to the buffs duration on bards specifically,
right?
Since we're in like the diagram of overlap.
Yep. Well,
fuck bard though, nerf bard.
One thing that's kind of nice to see, and I can't recall too many times that we've said this, is that even if we don't agree with the change itself, at least they were consistent across the board for the most part in applying it. They didn't just look at cleric and say reduce bless and protect and whatever else they reduced, divine strike. As we go through these balance changes to the classes, we're going to see in almost every single case they made an attempt to bring every class's buffs in line with the others. So that is one thing worth commending, I think, is the consistency aspect.
Yeah, the sweeping change that hit everything. Yeah. It seems to be a counter buff ball. Agreed. Where like now you have to choose some other classes or focus damage more instead of utility. But well, I think we could talk about Bard and some other classes. I kind of want to transition to like some meat and potato stuff. You guys want to talk about the dungeon and then we can come back to Bard?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
I mean, there's a lot there. Like for sure, patch 80 to me almost felt like what a new wipe could have had, but instead we're getting like an end of wipe, massive differential change between normals and HR. Yeah, mini preparatory wipe, plus non-minted arena on the way Thursday. So where should we start?
How about the dungeon? Dark Swarm.
Which part? Dark Swarm.
Dark Swarm.
Yes, we've returned to my wonderful swarm. I missed her dearly, and no more rogue ambushing, no more bullshit for me. I find my portal. Lord. Good fucking luck. The Swarm Lord is back. Just tonight, I went all the way down to the depths of Inferno, and you know what I saw? The circle pulling directly away from the boss room. And I thought, sucks for everybody else. And I trotted myself off into the far ass corner of Neverland and just watched as some dirty little rogue, who I actually killed earlier in the same run, was fighting the boss. So then I killed him again, had his second legendary Rondel in my bag, killed the boss, and healed up, took all his meds, and went back to the swarm. And yes, I know you're going to say, how'd you kill the... Yes, but it was because I killed him in runes, and then I killed him again in Inferno.
I still thought
so. I killed him in runes on the first floor, and then I went down, and then I killed through crypts, and then I went down to Inferno. Yep, and he got merged into my Inferno lobby. I thought it was hilarious when I saw the name. I was like, "That's 2 legendary Rondels you've given me, you son of a bitch." But yeah, killed it in the middle of the swarm. Nobody to bother me. Just relaxing, it's calm. It is easier than ever to rat yourselves through a run. I know everybody's going to go, "Oh, hardcore, it's dangerous. I can't do it." Play the swarm. It's there to be your friend. It's not there to hurt you.
That's super great if you are playing one of the 9 classes for sure.
Hey, I had no healing spells. All I had was divine protection smite, so I just grabbed a ton of. Doesn't stop the swarm damage.
Doesn't
swarm
it?
damage doesn't care. No,
it doesn't.
Swarm damage goes right through. It's true damage. Yeah. So I just popped. Yeah, I just popped tons of pots and bandages. Like I said, I ran out of healing, but that dead rogue brought me a lot of extras.
You scavenged a scavenger.
Yeah, I was like, I have to kill this guy. I watched the swarm pulling as far away as it possibly can. I made it out of that run barely, but it was a lot of fun. I like those moments. Those moments were gone. I'm not sure about the end of boss portal. I do like having that kind of, oh, you killed the boss, have a portal bonus.
Nope.
But I also like the intensity. I watched you pull that pulve earlier. You greedy son of a bitch.
I pulled 2 pulves.
And yeah, like you just, that intensity is there now. I feel like that's the hardcore experience they were going for. As somebody that plays way too much, yeah, I get it. It's going to be difficult. A lot of people are going to die. People were already complaining about not being able to get out of Inferno. don't go. Like that is what they are telling you. That is SDF's vision. Is he's not like saying stay poor, but he's saying it's going to be dangerous, and you need to decide. You need to decide now. You have to make a conscious decision. If you're going to go down there, it's going to be dangerous. They haven't tweaked the dial on the rewards yet, but I feel like that's coming too. They're going to start like that's all they did right now is just. Yeah, and that's what I like. Everybody's freaking out. There's no value in it. Okay, I know, I get that. And when that dial is tweaked, there will be value. I don't know what they're going to do to make it valuable, but it's really cool. I like it right now.
So real quick, that brings up a question that someone in the chat had earlier about having too much incentive in normal for veteran players to never elevate to HR. Unless Terrence and SDF had mentioned that in the most recent interview that you did, Odin, on the tavern table.
I don't think it's the case anymore.
So I think it is definitely the case right now. You can make the argument that there is more bang for your buck for a veteran player to go and farm troll, farm wyvern. You can do it easily.
You could make that argument for Ice Map. I don't think you can make that argument for goblins or for crypts anymore because there's no fog of war in HR. So you know where you're going and what you're trying to target. Yes. I actually was playing normals. Like after the change, I was playing normals, and I was like, I kind of just want to go into 8. Like, and this is I'm somebody who really enjoys normals, because I do enjoy. I know there's a lot of discussion about like HR isn't welcoming enough, and that's the reason people aren't playing it. But I do actually believe that there are people who just genuinely enjoy playing the 0 to hero life.
Oh yeah,
in normals where it's 100%. All normalized.
100%.
I'm one of those people that enjoys both. After this change, I actually said to myself, I'm like, I kind of don't want Fog of War anymore. I like the random dungeon, but in normals, I feel like it's too aimless. And now I'm just sprinting through modules trying to find stuff. Whereas in HR, I just pull up the map and go, that's where I want to go. If I have to fight somebody for it, that's the fight I got. The only thing I think is like, if we're going to go with the changes that were proposed, especially with no trade at the beginning of next season, I think we need like a 0 to 24 HR bracket. Or 0 to 224 HR bracket. Against that, I understand that people would be worried about like people with 0 investment going in and just ratting fights. I think the way the swarm works and the difficulty of the modules make it hard for you to go in with literally nothing and still rat. Obviously, you could just buy like a couple purple 2-handers and go in, but you could do that now, so I don't really see the difference. I think there are a lot of people who are not going to want to play normals with Fog of War and all that, and are just want to get into HR, and not being able to go in without at least 125 gear, I think kind of defeats the purpose of like the super hardcore. I see Endboss smiling here. I know he's about to just tell me I'm wrong.
Oh no, I was just laughing at the flashbang. It's so fucking bright. It actually like blinded me.
It distracted
me. But no,
like
I was actually I was going to 100% agree with you because I haven't touched normals since the changes. I have no desire. I don't even want to quest in normals. I'd rather buy 2 sticks of shitty and go into HR completely fucking naked than deal with the Fog of War in normals. It just seems like it seems like a weird thing to do to the normal lobby. Like it does slow down PvP, so that's cool. But yeah, I love the dynamic in High Roller. I have no desire to go to normal. So if people are getting clocked out by sweaties or whatever, I don't know what those guys are psychopaths.
If the plan was to make people like me just say I don't really feel like doing normals anymore, I mean, mission successful. Yeah,
I have no desire. I don't ever want to go to normal.
I'd rather just be in HR now.
I mean, I think that's the dream, right? We're already trying to push solos and duos into trios, and you're trying to push a little bit lightly people into HR. And I know me and Odin talked about this today on stream. Was the idea that if you keep Fog of War in normals, you force the veteran players to come to HR, and it's going to be way easier to do quests in High Roller when I can see the rooms that I'm supposed to go to. And like you mentioned with self-found, if we have no trade for, let's just say 2 weeks, and self-found and a reduced loot drop, they turn the faucet down a little bit. We're like the majority of the people who've already played a few wipes are going to be pushing to get to level 20, diving into High Roller as soon as and as often as possible to finish their quest lines, assuming we get uncapped quests as well, which makes sense. And then you're trying to like get the crafting mats and like actually put together gear sets and then run them. So I don't know if we need a 0 to 24 HR. I feel like it's so easy, even in self-found, to bring in like, whatever to get to 125. I mean, it's like one weapon, to then be able to do high roller. But I think it's a good change. I don't like the fog of war in normals, but I think that's the purpose. Like your normal players and your newer players and your less experienced, skilled players are just like aimlessly wandering around and they're learning the game. And then they will want to go to high roller for like the battle pass or the demigod rewards, and so they can frickin' see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does.
I think it's like a really good incentive. Like they did good keeping high roller hardcore, but also making it more appealing. Like I'm glad Fog of War is gone from HR. I didn't like it. At first I did, but then I didn't. And now I like the swarm. I'm with end boss. The amount of swarm fights I've had, like at the boss, especially if it's already almost out of circle, like a corner, you have to beeline to that shit. And that makes it exciting. There's like 1 or 2 teams. Now you're like swarm fighting. You're not really sure what's happening. You don't get your gear back, so then you have to do like threat assessments. It's like dangerous again.
Question, just a quick question. If like the takeaway from the swarm highlights is the best part of the swarm is that you're having fights in the swarm. That's what I've heard from you, Boss, so far. Then I would argue, then what's the point of the swarm? Like, what does it actually do if we're still fighting in it? If we're still just playing the game as we were previously in the swarm? It forces engagements. I feel like I've had way less fights now that swarm is back than I did previously. I feel like
really?
I feel like
I have way more.
I feel like I'm fighting all the time now.
All the time.
Well,
yeah.
I feel like I was fighting all the time before. I feel like I was not running into the issue of not being able to find people. You just log into runes, go mid, go to one of the 2 reds. There's always people there. If you don't find people, you go crypts, you go to the boss room, you go to Coliseum, you find people, and then you go down. Like finding people hasn't been an issue. At least the previous wipes, it has been. And like previous wipes, I would have been like, okay, maybe Swarm has a place. But like finding people has not been a problem.
You're talking trios, though. I would.
No. I'm talking duos, solo, trio. I've been playing them all.
Really?
Like duos and trios and having a lot of fights. On part of that though, I think is runes is randomized now, so it changes because one of the things about runes was that it was very predictable. It's the same thing as HR Crips last season, or the season before that, where all the fights were always happening in specific spots. The heat map was always certain areas because people just knew the layout, knew what the rotations and spawns were, and everybody kind of played the same way. And I think the ruins just before it got randomized kind of turned into the same thing. So now that runes is randomized, you probably don't have that anymore. And in a lot of cases, I think people they see their first red on runes and they're like, I'm going down.
Mm-hmm.
But even in randomized Crypts and randomized Inferno, I feel like I was still not having problems finding people. And like I said,
on the side of that, I agree with Ken.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a bad thing that we're finding people. I don't think Swarm actually there wasn't a problem that Swarm is solving. It's just there. It's just now just a minor inconvenience. I'm pretty indifferent to it. It doesn't really affect me too much. It just I just ask why.
I don't think it has it. Yeah, for the PvP stuff, I didn't say I noticed an increase in the PvP. It's just a difficulty factor that was added to the rotation of the map. It's just an intensement factor. For me, it was just now the fear factor went from a 3 to a 4.5. So it makes the fights more intense and enjoyable just because everything is a little bit more insane, a little bit more difficult. Getting out is less of a guarantee. I'm not saying, in my experience, my PvP hasn't changed either. It actually, I would say, has gotten worse in the sense of everybody is trying to do, sorry if SDF sees this or hears this, but everybody's friendly, man. Everybody's crouching from across the maps. People are crouching at me. And maybe it's because I'm playing Bonk Cleric and I got the Lantern and Morningstar, but I swear I played HR for 7 hours straight and I killed 2 people that wanted to fight. Everybody else was trying to just crouch spam and run away from me. So the PvP is actually lesser ever since the patch. I don't know.
Grind, man. It's the AP grind.
Yeah,
they're going for the AP. Yeah, it's the AP grind, but it was on Crypts, so why would they? Yeah, I'm just it was I'm not gonna kill them, but they just crouch at me and they look so innocent and new. So I don't know if they're going for AP and going on runes, or which is just the wrong map entirely, or.
Yeah, it's just AP, I think. I think it's AP. I do think being a Bonk Cleric also has part to do with it because it's sort of like what the Barbarian effect was when they were really overtuned.
I don't want to fight that thing. It's scary.
People just didn't want to fight if you were a Barbarian. They just see you and they're like, nope, I'm good. I'm going this way. See you later. But I think, I don't know, man. We've talked about this a few times. I really just wish the AP system would be converted into just a general account system, not the rank system. Make it just a season-wide progression. Yeah, make it a battle pass. Make it a season-wide progression thing that you can unlock over the course of the season. because and like let it apply to normals.
Sure.
I know this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but new players have a difficult time understanding how they're progressing. Obviously, there's quests, but they're not always completing those, and sometimes it can be hard to see what your progression is, especially if you're not extracting. But if you have an AP track that works in normals too, even if you're not extracting, you're still seeing how many monsters you killed, what the estimated value of your treasure was, and all that. So, I just don't like AP because I think, I mean, so how many videos has So Bad made about grinding AP and said don't PvP, it's not worth it, and everybody who grinds AP is like don't PvP, it's not worth it, it's a waste of your time, you're just going to lose points that you could be gaining, and at best and at worst you die and lose all your progress.
100%. Yeah,
so I think
now that we have ranks in arena, why do we need that? Yeah, I totally agree. Battle pass or
just bring back old leaderboards.
I think what you could do
10 different ways to play the game.
Right.
Coming into HR is you could have 2 different battle pass tracks. You could have a normal that has way lesser rewards, like the zombie skin that doesn't have the purple eyes. You could just like slightly worse cosmetics. And then if you go to HR, it's way better. So like they'll want to do normals, and then when they max that out, like let's say that only gets you to battle pass 50, and then 51 to 100 is HR. And so now you have, once they max out, which wouldn't take that long, like let's just say it's a month of casual play and normals, then there's still 2 months left on the season, and they're like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm gonna start jumping into HR. Like I already did it here. I just have to do the same thing in like a more hardcore environment. So that could be good. I mean, PvP, by the way, is definitely worth it for Demigod, but you have to be like the top 10 to 20% to do that. Like when I was on the Cleric, I got Demigod in 10 hours by killing everyone I saw, and a lot of them were just putting their hands up or crouching like Endboss ran into. That's free AP.
That's a different problem,
That's
though.
like actual free
that's
AP.
That's a different problem. That's people
letting
you kill them.
It's very funny that
That's
like you said to get Demigod, you have to be like the top 10 or 20%, and then you immediately follow it up with, I was killing people who were surrendering to me, and that's how I did it.
Yeah.
So
they're watching my video, and I'm telling them not to fight, and then they're not fighting, and I'm getting free AP. It's a win-win. But it
like
is
giving
not
bad market advice so you can profit off it.
But like it is for the top guys are going to PvP.
King of the rats.
But the casual player base needs to be able to get Demigod, and they can get there the easiest.
Before we get too far away from it, because I don't want to forget, the Swarm. Here's what I think: removing Fog of War and adding Swarm at the same time makes the data is muddied. So if you remove Swarm, or if you remove Fog of War but don't add Swarm, and playtest it that way and see does PvP change. I think Ken might be right. It might be the fact that the Swarm really just doesn't need to exist, and it's either
it's the lack of Fog of War that helps. I think because like people will load into a map, they'll hit the M button, like okay, I see these 4 modules that I like to fight in, and there are aids. I'm gonna go to these, and that's what I've been doing anyway. And
beelining for boss and vault. And
exactly.
But it does serve another purpose that we haven't talked about, though, right? The circle tells you where the random portals are going to be spawning near the end of the raid.
Yes,
more or less.
That's true.
It also
you don't need the circle to do that. You could just make those indicators on the map.
True.
It tells you where you could just safely farm and where you can rat. Because like if I go to vault after it's closed out, like let's say I already cleared it and I go back later or whatever, I know I can pull 5 piles there, like almost 100% I'm safe. So there is definitely something to be said about having the circle, which doesn't do that much damage. And like when I'm on my Bard, I go mine in Goblin Caves. I just mine in the Swarm because like I'm pretty sure no one's gonna come. Like it has a big safety factor.
No rogues will definitely be on their way. That's for sure.
I'm kind of blind and deaf, so like if they do come, they're gonna get me. But like no one ever just says, "Well, like I'm just gonna go walk through the Swarm for a while."
Be devil's advocate here, okay? Isn't this like how the Swarm is not intended to be used? Isn't the whole point of Swarm to make a zone that you're not supposed to be in, and everybody's using it as a place to fight safely? Doesn't this not feel a little?
You have to make the Swarm way more punishing if you're going to do that.
That's why I said it. I thought it was just a mechanic to punish people and to force you to have to either spend something in gold terms to make up for it. Like I consider bringing extra potion. Like ever since the Swarm got added back in, I have done going through the checklist. I got my 6 stacks of potions. Now I bring 3 more. I double down on my investment has gone up to compensate for the Swarm's existence, but that's just like it's breakage, like every run now I have to spend another 150 gold on potions. Yeah, that's just the way the Swarm is now. Yeah, if I get bad Storm, that's just fucking breakage, man. Oh shit, I got to run somewhere. Maybe I got to pull a couple of extra mobs, take a couple of back shots, and get through the door before I die. But that's how we got to do it.
Yeah.
it just feels like it's a very unintended way to use it, and I don't know. It just feels weird. It just feels weird. These are the best parts. These are the best parts of Swarm to us.
If the Swarm is meant to push people into fighting each other, it's not threatening enough to do that. If it's meant to punish
a little bit.
Well, it helps a little bit for people being scared. Like it helps push like the tiny little scared rats that are out of potions and bandages who can't go through the Swarm because they're a little cheaper.
It's negative because that sucks. Like I feel like Swarm just hurts the lower echelon of players.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It is indeed. That's what I'm saying. Is it's forcing mostly the other type of player. But that's
speaking of taxes on the poor. How do we feel about HR having no more Goblin Recovery Service?
I hate this. This is the worst change they've ever had.
I like it.
You're the worst person I've ever met.
I don't want people getting gear back.
In some sense,
it's too easy.
In some sense, I hate it, but in some sense, I really like it because I do enjoy the fact that with the combination of the game moving towards a more hardcore state and potentially having no market for the entirety of the first month of next wipe, we're really putting people into this point where, like, if you see someone with a BIS kit, it's because they worked their asses off and they played so well to put that kit together. And if you kill that person, it is such an incredible reward. That doesn't really exist in the game right now because of Goblin Recovery and because of market. So in some ways, it feels a little too punishing. Maybe there's a happy middle ground where, like, you, I think Sobed or I think maybe Guild Leader was the one that suggested, like, maybe you only get 3 of your items back at random, preferably not something that you got from the Squire.
Well, so to talk about like what you're talking about with like gear being more valuable, those people wearing the Super Biz kits, those aren't the kits that are being recovered in Goblin Merchant. Those are the kits that are always getting looted and getting extracted with 95% of the time.
Not always.
Like I said, obviously there are outliers, but the people that it hurts are like people that are going in with average kits that when I kill them, I'm not looting them, and I'm like, and they could come in my chat later. I'd be like, "Don't worry, Goblin Merchant has your back. Didn't take your stuff, get back in there, bro, little man."
Yeah.
But like,
little bro.
I like that dynamic. I did like that. Like, oh hey, don't worry about it. Little Tim. I felt less horrible about slaughtering everybody in the lobby because I was confident they would get their shit back as long as they didn't rage log off after being bonked into oblivion. So I did that just as like a trying to be not such a horrible person in the dungeons and keep that player count going. I like that mechanic. Now it's like, are you sure you want to fight me? Don't make me do this.
Nobody wins here, man.
Yeah.
I don't care about your shit and you're going to lose it.
I don't want your gear. Stop chasing me. All right.
What if it was...
Go
ahead. Sorry.
I used to care way more about getting a kit back, but now with the fact that we can put extra kits on Squire, you just buy 4 kits when you ever buy a kit, assuming you have the funds for it, which is its own problem. But you buy 4 kits, you put 3 on the Squire, you wear 1. And then you just go in, and if you die, you put another kit from the Squire on. And like the market QOL changes for both selling and buying, I feel like it's easier than ever to get back into gear. So like that part... I don't know. Like I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I like it a lot. It also means you have to be more careful when fighting, and you can't just W key trade everything and not give a shit. Like you really have to care now, especially with artifacts. And so I think that part's good. I don't know. I could go either way. Like I'm glad that when they made this hardcore, they did like I think everybody like what'd you think? When they said there was gonna be hardcore, I just thought, oh, like no more Goblin, and instead it's like no Fog of War, Swarm, random portals, less portals, no Goblin gear.
When they said they were going to make it hardcore, I was afraid. I thought they were just going to make it extremely inconvenient, a pain in the ass, and miserable to play, and that's exactly what they did, and I hate it. But so yeah, that's my take.
All right, Arcane.
We talked about insurance before, and I think that was generally frowned upon. But now with this gone, is it worth revisiting some kind of modified version of that? Maybe even you make it earned insurance, where it could be attached to something like the more mobs you kill in raid, if you find a certain shrine or a merchant, you can convert the number of mobs you've killed to insure up to 3 pieces of gear. Something
Straight up,
like that.
fuck no.
Let's just make it a merchant affinity for the Goblin. Who gives a shit? And then
that's easier.
Straight up, fuck no to insurance.
No insurance. All right.
Because I hate the idea. Only if insurance. Only if it's not something. Because in I think in Dungeon Board they made it to where you literally, if somebody insured an item or used like the dice, You couldn't.
Yes, it was a
that
locked
item.
item.
No,
You literally
that's
couldn't
not
even
the
take the item.
The
Yeah,
insurance
that
would
was
only be
stupid.
if the item was left and the dungeon closed.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
it.
then that's fine.
That would
That's fine.
that
No,
would be
that
the only
was-
way it would insure it. That's what I'm proposing.
Yeah,
No, you
that's fine.
couldn't. The old, well, yeah, for our version, yeah, the dungeon
Yes.
one was locked. Tarkov's is, I like the idea. Is
Tarkov
like
does
the
the
Tarkov
best.
one.
Yeah.
If somebody you pre-insure it, so you've already invested in the idea that I want to make my investment is
Is it
in.
per run?
It,
you
no,
insure the item?
it's
No.
it's if you lose the
Insured
gear, if
till
you die
dead.
in the run, you have to reinsure the gear.
Okay.
Assuming it comes back, but yeah, if you insure it, it's
loss.
just per death. Yeah, per
Okay.
death. So you just go in there and you keep your stuff, and if somebody takes it, you don't get it back. It's the right way to do stuff.
But
at the
you
same
still
time,
paid the upfront cost. It's better for
you
the
paid
gold
the
economy.
upfront cost.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a sink. It's something that can constantly churn. And if you get the item back, you can pay the same cost, do it again. Maybe even have a stacking cost. There's so many ways you could implement it.
A
think the
stacking cost is interesting with the cooldown. Maybe I kind of like that.
That's almost like an inverse of the durability system that people have suggested
Yeah.
before.
Mhm.
It's something
As
to
it
keep
becomes
you on
more
your
and more
toes.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
actually
again,
like
if
the
somebody
idea
loots it, it's gone.
Well, for
I
sure,
actually-
gear
like
was
that
way
idea.
too abundant though, compared to Tarkov or like any other game in the genre. Gear was just falling off the shelves everywhere. You get multiple legendaries, even uniques per round. So maybe for now that they've made it more hardcore, and if they turn the faucet down on gear, maybe next wipe they bring gear back, or like maybe you get insured only up till like the last month of wipe, and then they turn it off.
I don't know if turning the faucet down on gear is a great idea.
I
Because
will never agree with like the take that gear is just too easy to get. Like I will never go to the grocery store and be like, there is too much food that is affordable for me to eat.
If everybody's
is
getting
bad.
it, that's one thing. I agree, but I like the idea of like there are certain levels. Like in Tarkov, the wipes are the most fun at the beginning because you're not constantly getting one tap. There's like the fun curve of the wipe progression, and once everybody hits like level 40, unlocks max traders, is running M61 and M995. The game's like the shelf life drops dramatically. All the players start to fall off. Like all wipe games go through that cycle. So Tarkov, what they've been doing is trying to extend the fun period of the wipe cycle by tuning the filters on loot and gear and stuff like that. You try to fine balance that way. You have your actual like maximum time length spent in the fun zone, so to speak, before people go in and they're running 4 lads, which this wipe we noticed was in a fucking week. So like, yeah, I could see them like dialing back or tweaking the knob a little bit to put the focus in more of the curve of where the funnest parts of the gameplay loop is during the wipe. And that changes for everybody, and it's not the same. You know what I mean? I'm just saying like there is a specific part like that.
There is a part like that. And part of the balance always has been you have to make it fun enough so it's rewarding to kill people and to get loot, and punishing enough so when you die you're not just like, oh well. And like that is a balancing act that they always have been doing and will continue to do. And they said they're going to turn down the loot next wipe.
I think a better way to do it instead of turning down the loot is to have some kind of stacking cost. Like I actually really like the idea of a scaling insurance where the more you've insured an item, the more expensive it is. But I would take that even a step further where
if you have like more at fault accidents, like your rate goes up, you know.
Your goblin it's called goblin insurance for a reason.
Yeah, if you're dying in a corner to 15 nightmare axe skeletons because you got yourself in a bad spot chasing a team and leaving your entire team behind, so bad. The goblin's like, dude, I had to fight off 15 nightmare skeletons to get this shit back for you. It's going to come at a price, buddy. No, but I think right at the start of the wipe, buying back a very good kit is expensive. I mean, it's based on rarity, but I think it could be more granular to where, like, if you are actually running crazy bis, it's going to be very expensive for you to get your kit back. The flip side of that is, how that gear settles in the economy and how much gold inflation there is. Having a gold sink early on might be a really good thing, especially if guild halls or gathering hall and like guilds actually have meaningful gold sinks that people want to spend it on. I think if you have the recovery system be expensive enough and have enough social systems that people want to engage with and spend gold on more gold sinks, then you can have a ton of great gear, but make sure that churn is really high on it and make it very expensive to get it back if you fuck up and lose it.
You could make it like a currency to purchase it back from the goblin. That's like a find and raid only sort of looted item that you can't trade, like a looted status goblin a year.
Just more gold.
I'm just saying, like, gold would be fine, but like, at what point because controlling the economy is one thing, but having infinite wealth and we
No,
don't know at what point the
why do you
scales.
think you have infinite wealth? Because there's not enough gold sinks. It's very
Yeah.
disinflates over time. There's like not enough sinks. Like Goblin Merchant was probably the best sink, and I'd argue the number wasn't high enough.
Yeah, it wasn't even close to high enough because, I mean, how many people like there was? I would love to actually like go see the numbers. I don't know who I'd have to talk to actually get to see the numbers, but I would love to see the day the religion was released. I would love to see how much gold was actually spent in that and how many people redeemed it and how much the economy actually changed from a large scale. Because I have a feeling the amount of gold that is circulating in the economy is well
Much
beyond
lower.
the scale that anyone can consider.
I think it's a lot lower than people think because we saw in that patch with the religion that
You can literally look at the
keys,
numbers.
everything tanked. The amount of perceived gold and perceived value in keys and like these gold storage items is much lower than the actual amount of liquid gold in the banks. It's just like the U.S. banking system. There's lots of digital numbers
it's more
on
like
computers.
supply and demand.
There's not a lot of gold in the vault.
I think it's more like supply and demand on that one, just because there was everybody offloading all at the same time. Everything got
exactly.
crashed.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is that much gold in the economy. That's the crazy part. I think there's it's
I agree with
insane
Ken,
how
dude.
much
Like,
gold is in there.
How much liquid gold? I only ever have like 30K at almost any given time, and that's probably more than most people.
Even if you have a ton of chests, on the other hand of that, even if you have a bunch of chests, you still can only hold so much money.
Right.
Like you would have to be the richest player in the game to have all that gold. But there was that one guy who did in the previous version of religion when it was just the
like
boon.
3 million gold. Yeah,
it was like it was in the billions, dude. It was the most outrageous shit. I'm like, how do you like? I actually could not wrap my head around how many characters and tabs of gold storage had to have been created and traded, and how many accounts were used just to store all that gold. I think, in a lot of ways, people find the gold storage in this game very frustrating, and in a lot of ways it is. But I think it's just because the game's economy gets so inflated that for people to afford things, they need to have 4 chests and a bunch of keys that are all worth, 50 to 100K each. I don't think that's sustainable or healthy for the majority of players. I think having things cost so much money hurts a lot, and having gold sinks that people actually care about could help keep the gold cost down and make things more reasonable. Yeah. And then if the gold in the economy is lower and you have to pay 700 gold to get your goblin kit back, that might actually matter.
Yep. And that is a perfect segue into one of our next topics, which is speculation, or that's not really speculation. It's Terrence saying it's possible this might happen, or probable even. He discussed having month 1 potentially be self-found only, that marketplace would be disabled. April 10th is when the next wipe is scheduled for, right? So potentially less than 4 weeks after wipe, we could see up to a month of no marketplace.
Okay. Let me kick this off. Let me kick this off because I think I'm a good one to start this off, because I'm not like a solo self-found Andy. I'm not your Soapy. I'm not your Ryan. I'm not your end boss. Like, I'm not like the solo self-found guy. But like, I play solo self-found in games. I like them sometimes. It's a nice novelty every now and then. And I think if you're ever going to do a solo self-found system in this game, this is the smartest and best way you could do it, in the safest way. You just start the season off SSF. If it's a shit show and everybody hates it, you could always turn it off. Mm-hmm. If it's super well received and everybody likes it, you could always extend it. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a very low risk way to just at least try it, test the waters, see how everybody is feeling, and then you re-release the marketplace 2 weeks, 1 month in, and it's like nothing ever happened and everyone's having fun, just playing the game like normal. I think this is a huge W, the rare Iron Mace W, but I call it when I see it.
Agreed.
To add on to that, I think, if the game ever does get to a point where it can sustain separate queues, you could, if it is really successful, you could even just take it one step further and have, I mean, this has been suggested a million times, but just have the option when you create a character to just make it a solo self-found only character, and that character just literally cannot enter trade, or even just make it so that if you click on the trade, if you join the Traders Guild, you are now in the trade queue, or if you don't click on it, you're in the solo self-found queue. I would love to see the game reach numbers to where it could sustain that. Obviously, it can't do that right now. I think at the beginning of a wipe, it might be able to. But when there's 10 to 15K people online, probably not.
I mean, unless they get rid of these pesky solos and duos in HR.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Get them out of here.
I mean,
Get them out, dude. I'm on board now. I used to riot. I'm actually fine with it now.
We'll talk about that after.
Yeah. I think we're all on the same page with this SSF thing. I don't even have much more to say.
You nailed
that.
I
think it's a great idea. Fantastic.
The Tarkov approach, we'll call it.
Yeah.
So what are all the real quick before we wrap it? What are all the reasons we can think of for why it's good? Not just that the timing is good, it's a good low risk time of the wipe, the beginning, to try it out. But what are all the benefits you get from doing it at that time, aside from what Ken already said?
Well, timing aside, I think SSF in general, it creates a huge sense of satisfaction in finding the gear when you know that you can't get it anywhere else. Like, I can't just do something to generate gold, go to the marketplace, find the exact item that I want, and then buy it. If I have to open a bunch of chests and kill a bunch of mobs and I find this piece for this build that I want to do, it's just way more satisfying.
It also forces people to engage with the dungeon more, because you're not just going to W key into fights 24/7 if you have no gear. I mean, maybe some people will, because they just feel confident in their ability to win, but it's if you have to actually fight for your gear and you can't just go trade things, it'll keep the economy more stable when it does start. Maybe that's speculation, but I like the idea that every fight feels earned, or every win or every loss feels earned, and all of the portions of the dungeon matter. Right now I feel like in normals, when I did test it, I didn't loot any white skeletons, but I would loot red skeletons, and I would always loot nightmare skeletons because the loot from them generally matters. That feeling is probably amplified a ton when it's all solo self-found. I probably still would never loot white skeletons because they basically never drop anything above green, and 99% of the time, even on solo self-found, I don't give a shit about greens. I just like the idea of everything being earned, and the concept of that going on for a month and us getting to be in a fresh white playground where that is the case kind of brings me back to when the game first came out and trading was so goddamn tedious that I'd rather just play the game.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that looting feels a lot better in SSF, and there's more that you want to do for yourself. You want to set up secondary and tertiary back kits, you save stuff. It makes me want to quest. I basically never quested. But if all quests are unlocked like Tarkov, there's going to be a weird, fun new quest rush where a lot of people who don't play Ice will have to go to Ice because you want to craft your own little crafted bis. So I think it's going to be good for camaraderie too. It's going to force more trios, because I think trios can be a lot safer. You gain a lot more experience. You get to HR quicker. You'll
or teaming in normals.
And since XP and quests are shared across the whole dungeon, it does make me think that people will join squads and stay with those squads to do quests. So you might have a whole week or two of just playing with your friends where you actually want to quest and you want to find things and share things again. I think it's really good. I feel like a month is too long, but like Ken said, you can just turn it off. I feel like 2 weeks is probably the right amount.
Well, I just had an idea for questing. Since we talked about tweaking the dials on just removing the gating on time for quests, what if quests were gated not by week time, but by just, and this is the same thing, I'm pulling it directly from Tarkov, it's gated by leveling. Sure, level 20, you get first week's quests. Level 30, you get the second week. Level 3, so then it actually produces an in-between grind for people to go in and do something in between the quests. You want to get XP. You actually have something to focus on.
The only problem I see with that is that it creates a bigger gap between the haves and have-nots.
But they'll get there. They're still progressing. Yeah, I'm just saying it's still on. It's like a battle pass. They're always kind of progressing towards the level, no matter what they're doing, just by engaging in the game. But if people wanted to just speed run through it, rather than forcing everybody to wait 3 weeks and then they still have to go through the same process, they're all crawling at the same time.
Yep. And for sure, the key thing, I know they want to make it funner or whatever. If it's SSF, everyone's going to use their keys. And we're actually going to craft those little fucking dumb gold bags that hold 150 or whatever.
You're never
Because,
gonna
like,
catch
what-
me crafting that stupid thing.
Dude,
I think you're gonna craft that.
Not you'll end up crafting them
In
because
SSF,
they
you're
won't
gonna
have an
craft it.
actual cash
Yeah.
value. That's the difference. Is you won't loot a Batwing and be like, I just looted 1,000
Mhm.
gold. You're gonna pick up a Batwing and be like, I just looted a part of my gold bag.
Yeah, like why
it
not?
changes the feel of it.
That is
Yeah.
true. That is true.
It's
Instead
like
of
how
looting
arena
something
gear
that
feels.
instead of like looting a gold key bag and sell this and go buy this gear set, like I have to like go and all right, boys. I'm sorry, but we have to go target farm these spiders because I need my silk for my robe. I'm sorry,
Yep.
buddies, but
On the on the flip side of that is some of those, well, especially Batwings, like they take up 4 squares, and I have to decide: do I want to have 2 less squares for my my stash space for gold, or 1 less square technically, or do I want this valuable piece of loot, which I guess is a decent choice to have to make. But I still feel like the incentive on that is a little too low. I still think they need to increase the amount it holds by a little bit.
You can't sell things in the market to buy stash tabs. So now you'll have to make that little pouch and actually pick up gold and sell collectibles. Like right now, most of us don't pick up any treasure. Like it doesn't matter. Gear is worth a fucking shitload. So
that
now
reminds
we're,
me,
picking up bangles again and picking up gold.
this is a suggestion I made a while ago, and I completely forgot about it till now. I actually think an amazing partner like change to having SSF like this would be to have a character bound bag that does not drop, that is like your new gold bag that you carry with you into the dungeon, and just make it its own little like slot on the side. So now when you go into the dungeon, you have your 250 coin purse and it holds 250 gold. Make some quests that unlock the ability to craft a larger bag that you always have with you. Because if you're having to spend a ton of gold on things yourself without like trade, and you can't rely on selling things on the market, gold is going to be way more valuable, especially if we do get a goblin merchant that sells you things back for a very high price. You are going to need as much raw gold as you can get. I think having like a bunch of coin purses on you sucks. But I think having a coin bag that just like slots in and you can upgrade it over the course of the season to increase how much gold you can carry out of the dungeon with you would be so awesome.
Your booth pouch, I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Basically,
that's a very good idea. Actually, I didn't even think of that. It's actually write that one down type shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
W.
Plus, that's an always gaining thing like Tarkov.
Yep.
So like you're always getting, if you find, even if I die off rip, if I put like 65 gold in my little booth bag, I'm like,
Okay.
okay.
We got pots, baby. We got pots for next
Yeah,
time.
dude. You could get potions for your next run. Actually, yeah, I really think that would be a great change to go with the SSF thing.
100%.
And we didn't
That's
mention
also-
about sorry to cut you off, but the gem crafting I think makes SSF way more viable. If you would have asked me 2 seasons ago without the
W
crafting,
change.
I would have been like, it could be a little too RNG dice rolly. But now that you could like control some variables by target farming gems and like be able to craft viable gear, I think it's like way more appealing.
Yep.
So W.
Speaking of crafting, real quick, did Terrence at any point mention that are there plans to add like cooldown reduction and other secondary skills?
The stats when I mentioned it, I
stats, yeah.
think they said there was no plan to do. They were going to tweak the current stats, but I think they said there were no current plans to do that. But that could always change. One suggestion that came up when we were talking earlier, when we were playing with Sobad, was it would be really cool if there was a new slot for gems that added, like, I made a suggestion. It would be cool if like the artifact War Maul could break stone doors in Inferno.
Impact Power 10.
That then led to like, oh, it'd actually be really cool if gems could socket like maybe not perks, but like light versions of perks that give you like a cool interaction with something in the dungeon. If it was like a secondary slot, that would be pretty cool. I think if there was like a new type of gem that could drop that was like a cracked or like a skill gem that just gave you a tertiary stat that's not
Just
really
full PoE.
impactful. Yeah, like not something that's impactful to PvP, but something that just gives you like a little bit of utility in the dungeon. I would love to see more stuff like that.
Even like undead damage, like most of us aren't going to use it, but like it's something new players pick up, or like in SSF, you're like, oh sweet, 3% undead damage. I might as well just socket that in next raid.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if you could use existing gems and do like a gem cutter where you could take a green emerald and a green sapphire, have the gem cutter merge them together, and then or cut them together, and then that gives you that PvE utility property. So you don't want to use it to
Somebody-
enchant your item for the existing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Somebody in chat said, "Let me turn my spear into cinder." I actually think it wouldn't be too bad if you could have really minor effects, like if your attack did like 2 burn damage.
Actually, yeah.
It's super
Yeah.
tiny, and it's probably not going to decide a fight. And even if it did, you're not going to be like, "Man, fuck gems. I don't want this stupid burn shit on my weapon." It's just like, "Oh, cool. He had this like one little extra thing to give him a tiny bit of advantage."
Right.
I don't think it's that bad. Maybe I'm off. I don't know. Maybe everyone will be like, "No, fuck you. That's a terrible idea." But I think it's just something cool to give you more options to gear with. On the flip side of that,
it could be broken. It's like that when you like. There's some ways you could break these things, but I think
yeah,
it's worth risking things that could be broken if the idea itself could be really cool and fun. I hate the idea of adding things that are broken and like they don't add anything fun on top of it. But I think it's way different when you're risking potentially breaking a mechanic for something very cool. I think the rule of cool is real.
You're talking about how we got multi-classing, so calm down.
Yes,
spell charge gems, dude. Like you get 1 extra charge of a zap if you socket a diamond or something.
See, now we're speaking my language.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the last rumor, the one that's been the most controversial. Terry hinted that they are considering removing solos and duos from HR play.
Get them out. I think this will segue into the next topic, but I've gotten demi solo on every season, and I've played quite a bit of HR solo, and I know everyone in here except for Ken plays quite a bit of HR solo. I would be fine with the game. Do you? I see you every once in a while, but compared to the rest of us, I don't see you play very often.
Maybe like 10 hours a week, maybe. Yeah.
So my argument is that I don't want to say vast. Let's just say a significant portion of the player pop plays HR solo solely to grind AP. And that if that is removed and there's no other option, it's probably not going to be a massive transition for them to change to trios. Now, there are going to be a ton of people that say that's diluted. They just want to go in and do solo HR PvP and they don't care about AP at all. I get it. There are people out there that fit that mold. But I'm not totally opposed to it. I just don't think you should take them both away at once. You shouldn't take both solo and duo away at once. Pick one.
If anything,
consolidate the queues. Just make it so Goblin queues to HR solo and duos queues to HR ice.
No,
and then
we've done this already.
I know. I'm just saying it's an option.
So on the don't take it both at once like argument, if you're gonna rip the band-aid off, just rip the band-aid off. We don't want to rip 2 band-aids off. It just hurts twice as much.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been the biggest get rid of solos duos guy for the longest time, but I've always had this caveat: you can't just remove solos and duos and that's it. You have to give them an alternative. There are lots of solo players and duo players that don't have a team to play with in trio pre-made, and the solo queue system as is not up to snuff. I think like if you want to get rid of solos and duos, you have to have a new LFG queue where you take the LFG queue that we have now, where you hit the play button, get 2 random teammates, but you're put into a different lobby. You're not queuing into trio pre-mates. You're queuing into other trios that are also queuing LFGs. So you're only fighting LFG teams. So you're on a more even playing field, not getting run down by these pre-made sweats wearing Cinder. And I think that could be a very fun experience for a lot of players. I think I would just play that game mode casually all the time. Yes. I think it'd be great. I think that could be very fun. And if you're a solo player that wants to play by yourself casually, you can still play normals. And maybe you could extend the gear score brackets up slightly so you can wear some gear in normals. But I think there's a way you could do it. I just feel like I'm afraid Iron Mace will get rid of solos duos, not give them an alternative, and then say like, oh, this is a failure.
Well,
just go back.
Yeah.
Talking about removing solo and duo in HR without talking about the other really important factor of what is supposed to be on the table for next season, which is the gathering hall. I think you can't have the conversation of these two things separately. I think it's important to talk about both in the context. Because, like you said, I don't think you can remove solo and duo without giving them an alternative, and the alternative has to be some kind of LFGQ, and it has to be designed in a way that is engaging and punishes people who team kill and like actively makes it terrible if you're a shithead that just goes in to ruin people's games. Having a guild system, having public gathering halls, having more social space that gets people together and gets them wanting to play, get in the dungeon with each other, is a way that you fix the solo I guess not solo epidemic is the wrong way to put it, but there are
call
people.
What is, bro. Call what it is. A bunch of introverted fucking neats that don't want to interact with other human beings, ruining our games.
Some people just like playing games solo, and no matter how bad I don't want solos and how bad other people don't want solos, there are people who just like this game as a solo game, and you would burn them by removing solos, and there is no way around that. And there's definitely people who would just say, this game's not for me anymore, and that sucks. I don't think there's an easy fix for that aside from leaving in solos, but at the cost of, or leaving solos in comes at the cost of other things, like having to deal with problems that only arise in solos and having an unhappy player base that just continuously kind of goes, this shit sucks, the game's not balanced. Yes, it's not balanced for solos, it's meant to be balanced for trios. You are not going to get the same experience that you would have if you were in trios, but no matter how many times that comes up in conversation, it's still this is broken in solos, this is broken in solos, this matchup sucks, balance the game around solos, fuck the trio players. Like, what? You've got two different groups of people, and both of them are like, get rid of the other one, and it's hard to say which one of them is right. Only the developers can really make that decision.
Odin, did you get a sense for, and hopefully I'm not asking you to speak out of school because I honestly can't remember if Terrence said this. Did you get a sense for when he said, we're considering, and everybody, he did say considering, it's not set in stone, we're considering making it trios only. Did you get the sense that that also meant that you didn't even have the option to queue and not fill teammates as a solo or duo? Okay. So there still may be an option if you want to be antisocial Andy, you really don't want to play with any teammates ever, then you could go in by yourself at a disadvantage. And everyone's going to say, well, yeah, who the hell wants to do that? There will be people. Not many.
A lot of people.
I saw somebody in chat say,
I made my entire platform on it. Like,
yeah, but Ken has the best possible suggestion. If you allow it to be a separate queue, like most ranked games have, where like if you either queue with a pre-made or you queue into a random made and you're only playing with the other random made queues. That is way fair on every aspect, especially if you can no-fill. And now if you did that, you have a bunch of solos, a bunch of duos, and some trios, and it also creates new combat mechanics.
Oh, it wasn't the game
if a three-man... Yeah, and it was like that when the game came out. And now, especially with Swarm, like there's so much... The main thing is that this would be like a season or two from now, and there would be way more tools to find a team. And if you had a higher pop, and I'm going to say it, I say it all the time, but if you had console launch, and that mixed in too, everyone just random queues together, and you're just playing with, like, everyone's just doing whatever. You don't even have to be social. So there is a way to fix it, and I think Ken's idea is the best. If you get rid of solo and duos HR, there needs to be a separate queue for randoming into a trio. And then they would because you're talking about people on fucking controllers and listening to music and like getting off work. They don't give a shit. They go with no gear, 125, and they just fucking roam around and they do stuff.
Because I do feel for like the solo players. Like I understand like where they're coming from 100%. But like there's solo players in every game I've ever played. They're not just like this game. 80% of League of Legends, spoiler, it's solo players. You know what they do? They still hit the fucking play button. Same with Counter-Strike. Same with Valorant.
Yep.
And they
it's true. Like the thing of like CS has to be one of the best example in League. Like League, you literally have to hate yourself to play that game solo, but a billion people fucking do anyway. It's
Overwatch.
Yeah, like, there's the main thing about removing solo is that I think you would basically say to a portion of the player base, we decided that this is not how we want the game to be. It is up to you to decide if this is if you will stay with us. And I think that's a really hard choice to make as a developer. And I'm not trying to be clear here. They may not decide to do that, and I'm not the one that makes that decision. So for anyone who thinks like I'm speaking on behalf of SDF for Terry, that's never how it is here on the podcast. I'm speaking from a player perspective. There would be some people, I know people would say there's 50% of the player base plays solo. I don't know if that's actually true. I think it's probably a little bit less than that. I think it's a little bit more evenly split. But there would be a portion of that 50%, if that's true, that would say this game is no longer for me. It would be up to the devs to say, we understand, but this is the way that we want to move forward with the game. This is the audience that we want to target and then develop forward. I think that having, and we've brought this up many times, having a duo, a trio, and a solo queue is pulling the game in too many different directions at the same time and forces it into too many different Like you just continue to create problems by not choosing one way to play the game.
Listen, I'll say it. You're beating around the bush, right? 50% of the player base plays Squire lobbies and they're chilling. The other 50%, fuck you if you're a solo. All right, it's time. The way, listen,
Relax.
the way, relax. The way
Hell
we push,
yeah.
we go random trio Squire, right? Everyone pushes play. You don't care. You drop in your trio and you're fucking around. You lose. You brawl. It doesn't matter. We need that attitude for high roller. Think about if we only had one HR queue that's pre-mades and one with randoms. Everyone just pushes the button and you're always just dropping in. You don't give a shit. So however we have to get to that, we need that. We already have that for Squire gear and normals. We need that mentality for high roller where there's so many people that it doesn't matter if you die. You just go again.
And quick question, like that statistic that everyone brings up, 50% of the player base is solo players.
Mm.
What percent of them are solo HR players? I feel like it's a
Right.
much smaller percentage than just solo
And what
normal
percentage
players.
of those would continue to play solo HR if there was no AP grind?
Like you're gonna piss
Right.
people off, and I feel like these solo players are like a very loud. I'm not gonna say minority because there's a lot of them, but they're very loud. They're very vocal, and they're on Reddit, and they cause a lot of noise. And I feel like they've caused a lot of problems for a very long time. And I don't know. I feel like ever since the solos came out 2 years ago, we've been on a slow decline. Not because like I'm mad at these solo players, but just because of what you're saying. The having to spread out the resources of Iron Base to balance solos, balance duos, balance trios.
It's not even balancing solos because, well, actually it is in some ways, because I think the amount of complaints about balance are overinflated towards solo players because it is a 1v1 and because there are so many mismatches in not only gear but power and like skill sets between the classes. You just it's there's more friction, I feel like. In trios, I don't think it's a stretch to say that aside from getting hugely gear diffed, there is almost always a counterplay to a comp that you're up against. In arena, I feel like that problem gets exacerbated a little bit, or I guess it's maybe you don't have as many options because you're in a single module and you don't get the choice to run away and set up for a more advantageous position. Obviously we look at these like really close quarters maps, like the Mummy Room is just extremely favorable to like melee buff ball comps. But in trios in general, in the dungeon, you have a way to play around a comp, even if it's like a disadvantage for your comp. You don't have that in solo. There is not always a way to play around the other class.
100%. Well, think about the
and
other
as
thing.
soon as you start balancing for that, it throws everything else off.
Think about this. The number of queues reduces significantly, right? Even if you go to pre-made and random, you're still reducing the number of queues considerably across all the maps. What does that allow you to do if you're an Iron Mace to disable something that pretty much everyone hates? You could disable continuous matchmaking potentially because all of the queues are now filling up more quickly.
And there's way less queues.
See,
That's a bold assumption because you immediately took the player base that's loving solos, like the guys in chat, and then said that they're just going to queue trios, and you're going to lose.
True.
Like your net is way bigger than you think it is. I
Maybe.
feel like you're going to catch some
Maybe
people,
right.
but a lot of people are going to slip right through that and just go do something else.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Like I know there's a
short-term.
lot of people.
Sorry to touch
Yeah.
on that. I think continuous dungeon is actually very good. I think that it has some problems they've yet to address. I think continuous dungeon is actually one of the better things they've done because if you want to have a 3-tier dungeon, you have to make it so there are players in crypts and players in infernos, and continuous is probably the best way they could do that. There are problems they have to adjust. They have to make the timings a little bit different. Maybe you can make it just so you go into separate queues, and it's they get rid of continuous to make it separate pod queuing. There's a couple of ways they can go about it, but continuous solves a big problem regardless of the issues that it has. And I would argue the problem that it solves is more important than the problems that it brings. Yeah. That's a weird one because, like,
What about if we took HR? We always move the gears and the scores around. It happens like every season. What if alongside this you do HR is now 0 to 124 again, and then like 125 plus? Don't we think people will actually be willing to trio random queue if you go in with nothing? If we have the actual 0 to hero queue for HRs, then HRs is just as fun as normal Squire. Like you just drop HR with nothing and you climb.
The one thing I don't understand about the argument of like, okay, if you go into a dungeon with your very best gear in random queue and you lose it, I understand getting pissed about that. if you go into random queue with like mid gear or whatever, how is that any different to playing ranked in any game? If you lose your kit, you lost a little bit of your time and a little bit of the stuff that you had stored up. I understand that for some players that might be a really big deal for more casual players, but I think that kind of goes back to the point of HR not being intended for casual players. They've already said that the intent for this is to be more catered towards the hardcore. So how is that any different to queuing solo into a team game in ranked and having 45 minutes of your time wasted because you played with some shitters? It happens in literally every game that you queue for a rank.
And like if you're in an LFG queue, you're just as likely to be playing against a lot of shitters.
Exactly.
And if you are the main character, as you say you are, you should be able to overcome that adversity. And if you can't, maybe you're just mid.
Somebody in chat said mid gear still costs like 10K right now. But this is taking all of the context that we've had in the previous conversation, just throwing it out the window, which is adjusting for solo.
What are they playing? Fucking
what the fuck?
For talking about solo self-found and managing the market to make gear more average gear more accessible and changing the baseline of what a good kit is. If we're playing an SSF and nobody has 10 billion gold to just drop on a market kit, the average baseline for a good kit completely changes to whatever good shit you got out of 2 runs. 10K is nothing in this economy, but it would be a fuckload of money in a solo self-found economy.
Dude, I think so bad. Onto something. I think you give the same gear brackets to both HR and normal. I love that idea.
Yeah, I do too. I love that.
The other thing about that is you would be more willing to no fill. Like if I could drop HR, zero gear score, and I wanted to play solo, I would just no fill then because it wouldn't matter if I died. So yep. I'm dropping in with the other, random queue, whether they be solos, duos, or trios, and there'd probably be a lot of that. So like having the mixed queue also helps because there might be like 7 or 8 teams on the map. Only 2 of them are a 3-man, but everyone has no gear. And it's also easier to win a fight at the lower gears when you're outnumbered, right? Like you can make weird plays. For me, I think the TTK at the lower bracket is like really interesting. There's way more back and forths and like a lot more hits to win. And so
also, mobs play a bigger part in the fight because they don't just fall over in one hit. And if you get trapped by them, it's a big deal.
And they're going to be nightmares. So like now you can really use the PvE to your advantage. If you're like, also you can listen better, almost like Tarkov. If I'm a solo and they're fighting a Thanos and I hear it hit one, I know I'm going to just go like one shot that player. Yeah. It's like there's a lot of things they can do. So we can't just rule out like if they get rid of solo HR, I quit. I think like Ken has brought up and we've kind of expanded upon, there are ways we can make this work.
Yep.
It's just going to take experimenting.
I said you're going to piss people off. No matter what, if you go with this change, people are going to be angry. But I feel like if your army is having the courage to be okay making people angry, to set up a better foundation for the future of the game, could be very important. This is coming from a perspective.
I don't think they've had any problem with that in the past.
I would argue that they backtrack a lot more than most companies, and
they do.
Yeah. And I think the time they did it, that's actually not bad. But
I'm saying I think that they're not afraid to try things, and I'm more confident that they'd be able to be more confident with trying.
Honestly, I mean, they're cool trying things multiple times, like over and over again, like plus all for years.
Let's get that swarm back, baby.
I don't know. It's
I'm sorry.
In a way, like. I get it. There are fewer and fewer games on the market, I think, that support solos. And I think that's one argument that you could make for this game is that it does have, a niche audience that enjoys this particular type of game. And in their defense, for people who only enjoy solo, there is no other game like Dark and Darker for you to go. Just if you're like, well, this game's not for me anymore. They took away my solos. This isn't for me anymore. You don't have something else to go and play. So you basically just lose something that you care about. So in that sense, like I totally understand the people who are extremely vocal and adamant about not getting rid of that. To that point, I think, the one truth in life is that you cannot make everybody happy. I would feel bad for the people who lost something that they really cared about. But on the flip side, for every person that's getting what they want, there's somebody else out there that's like, I hate this.
No, 100%. I hear you, but also like these loud minority of solo players that are very vocal about if you get rid of this.
I don't think they're minorities.
Sorry. I think the ones that are very vocal are the minorities. Yes. But there are lots of solo players, obviously. But those players, if you were to ask them, like they're like, oh, if you get rid of solos, this game is dead. But then you ask them, how was your day today playing solos? I fucking hated it. I got fucking class tipped 17 times. This shit is miserable.
Well, their argument to that is balance the game around solos, which
but you can't balance. You can't have a balanced game You can't.
We can
Not
balance
when,
the game for
not if
solos.
it's class
Just get rid of
based.
it. It's
That's,
balanced.
oh yeah, there we go. Well, but the point I'm trying to make is there's a reason why you don't see many class-based games that are balanced for solos, because it's almost impossible. The closest you come to is like fighting games like Street Fighter, and it only works because those characters are very homogenized. They're very similar to like what each of them do. They're not very different. They obviously have differences, but they're all fundamentally kind of the same. They all have a fucking range Hadouken and a kick and a block, and it works for those. But it doesn't work for these fantasy games where the classes are so different. You're always going to run into the rock paper scissors problem, where you run into a class that just like has a good matchup, and you're going to
look
get
at
shit on.
WoW. There's a reason why in 20 years the game's been around, there's never been a 1v1 queue in the game.
And every time there's a 1v1 duel arena, they're fun and for the novelty, but let's not sit there and pretend that they're balanced.
Yeah, everyone who participates in them acknowledges that there are matchups that their class cannot win, and it basically just boils down to the luck of the draw. Do we really want a game designed around that? I don't know. I think so. Somebody pointed out that the only way that you make the trios only queue thing work is if you add the LFG queue, and I don't think people understand enough how the frustrations that they have with trios comes from the fact that there is no rank system in this game. So if you're playing, it doesn't matter if you're playing 224 or 225 plus, you are going to queue, especially with the small community that we have, you are going to queue into people that are just, they've played together for 700 hours. They know how to play well together. They don't have to even calm to run your team over. And that shit sucks. And that's what frustrates people, because it feels like you just get steamrolled with no counterplay. And that doesn't feel good in any game. But if there's an LFG queue where you don't get to just queue with your trios team and shit stomp a bunch of frustrated people who are trying to find friends to play with, then I think the game experience changes dramatically for trios.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 100% on board with the LFG queue.
The population increases at that point too. Like if solo and duo queue is gone and a lot of people like the LFG HR queue, then you have way more players of varying skills and tiredness and whatnot, and like whether, whatever they want to do. It's like Squire queue at that point. I think all of us, even the people who play HR, like Squire queue. Right? Like, I don't know about you guys. Like, I'll just drop normal Squire queue as random LFG and like I'll just play.
Yep.
And it's like a whole different game mode. And if we had that for HR, I think it would be just as popular. It might even be more popular than the normals one, because you're getting like really good gear. You kill a skeleton, you get like a Legio or unique. And then you also feel way ahead. And that's part of the 0 to hero that NBoss likes and all of us like, is when you get that one thing and you're like, I'm definitely ahead of like the average gear curve of the lobby right now. I have a purple weapon.
It happened to us earlier. We were playing in normals, just fucking, chatting and barely paying attention to the game. We ran into a team. We had a decent fight with them, but then by the end, we looked at their gear and we were like, what the fuck? These guys, how did they get this much gear? They were like full blues and purples in a Squire kit lobby. Purple weapons. I'm like, what the fuck did these guys do,
like,
dude?
They actually played the game and they killed all the mobs and they beat us. And like, it was fun to see. Like, wow, they're actually geared.
And that's why I think the 0 to whatever lobby would work in HR too, because you're not like, when I died to that team, I'm not like, man, fucking just got gear gapped. I'm just like, damn, those guys got mad lucky. Oh well, next game.
They maximized their time on the first floor and the second floor, and
yeah, they played the
and
game.
they deserved the win. They played the game.
And that goes into the continuous matchmaking gameplay loop. If you want to hang out on the first floor to maximize your chance of success on the second floor, by all means. But if you're like us and you just W key through the dungeon like idiots and you run up to do a team that's super geared, oh well, you got gear checked. You took the risk. I think I love that part of the game, and I think that's a dynamic that belongs in HR, and I think that could be even better with an LFG queue.
Yeah.
All right, we've cracked the code here. I think we figured it out. Ship it to Iron Mace. They can take it straight from this pod on how
Let
to
them
implement.
cook.
Yep. So how much does arenas impact this? If we didn't have arenas, like right now, people are random queuing into arenas all the time. I don't hear a large outcry. There have been people that have said, when are we getting solo or duo arenas? Certainly. It's been thrown out there, but no one's lobbying hardcore for it that I've seen. It's been a very fringe minority, not a vocal minority at all. Very fringe. Do you think that call will increase if HR becomes, even if they do what we've recommended here and they do LFG versus pre-made? At some point, someone's going to say, we really want solo arena or duo arena. Don't we kind of, my opinion is that if you're really wanting solo arena, like if the reason that you're mad that HR solos is gone is because you wanted to go fight people one-on-one in your BIS kit, then I kind of feel like this isn't really the game. Like you're doing it wrong. Like this game was not meant for that. Doesn't mean you can't like it, but
it literally goes to the problem of when they first added solos, they opened a can of worms that is now like almost impossible to close because
right.
you added something to the game that was not supposed to be there from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I think it like personally, I think if you want to put in a solo or duo queue arena, fuck it, let them have it.
Sure.
If that's what they want, by all means. But I think when you get to a point where you're just queuing in for 1v1 fights, it will get down to a point even faster where people are like, wait, actually 1v1s suck.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I mean,
maybe
with the guild halls, we get 1v1s anyways. Like, we don't even need to waste dev time or go into like the 1v1.
Dude, hear me out. Dude, fuck the arena, fuck solo queue. Add a dual pit in the gathering hall if you want to have your 1v1s.
There you go.
I mean, add that too, but I don't think you need to get rid of the arena.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I meant the 1v1 arena.
For the 1v1 and 2s.
If you want the 1v1 arena, I like the idea of the solo queue shuffle, like how WoW handles their arenas, and just like you play through a match, there's 6 people in that match or whatever, and it mixes the teams every single round. And then it ranks you based on who gets the first, whoever gets the most wins stacked. So it's like, oh, okay, me and this, I got 3 wins out of the 5 matches that we played. I won. Like there's certain comps that are going to do well, but then there's people obviously that hate each other and will throw matches and but it's like the actual, like that's at a very big player base to sustain with it. But it is an actually fun and balanced way to do a solo queue.
I have
or
to
like
say,
trios
like
game
Arc.
format.
Like Arc,
like
or fighting
Cluster.
games where you fight 1 versus 1, and if I kill you, I keep the same amount of health and like spell charges and stuff.
The next
and
guy
then I have
jumps
to fight
in.
the next guy. And I mean, but again, though, that this is so much
That works in
balancing.
like a PvP game, where it's actually you're engaging and it's
I
not like
think
a kite fest.
I think the Gathering Hall solution of adding like a dual pit would be awesome. Honestly, I think that would because you're kind of addressing a lot of different things that engage the player and are fun to do, like having a bunch of people standing around watching your fight and just like everybody's chatting shit with each other in open comms. You can hear people around the arena talking shit about the fight while it's happening.
Dude, I'm in there. I'm Ben Skull Keys.
I'll play all the fucking time.
Wagering
like
mid-match.
I will throw for sure.
The barbarians will be punching, shirtless farms, raging, just like The Witcher.
You got match fixing in Dark and Darker before GTA 6.
Fucking Fight Club match fixing, it'd be great.
I mean, also, like the other cool things, and we only have to touch on this briefly, but it goes along with the idea of the Gathering Hall for the social space, for like the 1v1 duels or whatever. In the recent Korean Q&A, they also talked about having Guild Wars, and they finally put a number on it, which they tentatively said would be 10v10s. So I think as we expand on the amount of content we get, plus he said guild bosses, which would be very hard. So like with this other expansive content, like do we need to like focus so much on like the ones and the duos? Like there's more coming for more players.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that aspect of it too. Like there's even more reason to socialize if we get Guild Wars.
Yeah, it all ties back to this is originally made to be like a social game, and like it just feels like we were catering to the antisocial. The more and more it goes forward, and you could feel it. You could feel it in the dungeon. It feels not great.
Yeah, people are so like fucking angry and spiteful and shit to each other too. It's like it's a video game, dude.
Dude, I play arenas. You don't have to tell me. I have no idea how many people
video
have
game,
bad
guys.
days and log in and just freak out in the arena. I mean,
that's
we have had people
game,
just. I mean, this is the non-full loot friendliest game mode ever. Like we're playing the arena. It's literally like 30 seconds of competitive battle.
Respectfully, and boss, I need you to end your life in game, please.
Dude,
respectfully, of course.
Some of the best memories
Having said
I
that,
have,
go fuck yourself.
And some of the best memories that I have, and many others have, and some of the coolest videos that you'll see in Dark and Darker's history is literally just groups of people in the dungeon just hanging out and having fun. And every time you watch one of those videos, it just gives you the feel good. And then you got people like, no, I want my hardcore solo 1v1 dungeon.
And if anybody teams, give them the firing squad.
I can go subtweet at them on somebody else's stream and shit talk them, and it's like, bro, It's a video game, dude. You're supposed to be having fun here. It's not about.
Yeah, I've
it's
had
not a
people
piss
tell
and
me to off
contest.
myself in so many horrible, wonderful manners in the arena and just slurs going back and forth. And we're talking about it's an intense extraction. It's the fucking non-looting anything, nothing lost game mode, and people are absolutely out of their minds. I didn't know this, but I got tagged. I went to YouTube. People make videos of them beating us in the arena when we're just fucking around. I didn't know that.
If I lose in the dungeon, I'm also just fucking around. I just want to
Oh,
put that out.
okay. Yeah.
100
I played the arena 12
wasn't
hours a day
trying,
straight.
actually.
Every single damn day the arena is out through the most brutal and painful of maps. It is a slog of shit that is decided before you ever even finish loading into the game. But it's what we've got, and I just really hope they do something with it in this next patch.
Terrence
because it's
did
such a
say,
free win.
Yeah.
tell us,
Since
so
you brought
give
up
us some
Arena.
hope. Give us some hope.
Well,
There's that.
Seriously.
I was going to go off on something else here, but related to this. I've been saying for a little while that I feel like Arena is not the final evolution of like endgame PvP. They've used the term that like Arena is supposed to be PvP endgame for players who like PvP. I don't feel like it's representative of the PvP endgame. I think that like I bring this up all the time, and I'm still going to talk about this until we get something like it. I remember very fondly, and so bad and boss. I used to play with you guys, and we would have so much fun playing on this. When all party sizes got added to all maps, and Goblin Caves was still a 3x3, and you could queue into trios on Goblin Caves, it was 3 teams because there was only 9 players that would spawn there, so it would only spawn in 3 teams. So it was a 3v3v3 on a tiny ass map with only one objective anybody cared about, and it always turned into a really fun match-long 3-way fight. And I love that, and I think we should try to emulate that in some way in the arena and make the actual like competitive PvP not about the team 1v1, but about some kind of multi-team, because that's the way the dungeon is played, and that is just essentially a condensed version of it. Now, whether or not it would be full loot or whether it would have like a boss reward at the end is up for discussion. But I think that is a more representative form of the PvP in this game than throw each other in a single box and fight it out.
Well, you can always take the arena queuing system and then apply that to just any kind of formatted event. Like I always say, stuff like that could be a fun event. You take the arena queue, you hit the play button with your team, and then it could be a 3v3v3, or it could be a 4v4, or it could be a 10 guild battle. I think armies definitely could lean more into the short-term events, much like League of Legends did. And then when you find one that people like ARAM in League of Legends as an example, well, everyone likes this, maybe we should take this idea and run with it. Or people didn't like this, Dominion, okay, we could drop this garbage, and like so,
hey, bring back Twisted Tree Line. Bring back Twisted Tree Line.
Don't gotta tell me twice. I love Twisted Tree Line, but I just as an example, that's something they could do with stuff like that. I feel like that'd be a good way to experiment, and they just don't do that enough. When they do experiments, they do like multi-classing on the live server, and like it pisses people off, and there's high stakes. Whereas you could just make it in the arena temporary. Like, what if that multi-classing time to try it the second time that everyone hated? What if they just added it to arena temporarily, just to get a feel?
So fun.
just to get a feel. If people didn't like it, it was an arena weekend. Who the fuck cares?
Actually, cooking. You're actually cooking with that. Mm-hmm. Although I feel like it'd be really like from a client implementation standpoint, that would be difficult because it requires like a whole patch to essentially deploy the multi-classic system. So I think maybe the development maturity for the game isn't quite there yet. I suspect that eventually they'd be able to do something like that, but maybe that's just not something
the multi-classic one might be like the hardest one of like the ones I named to do.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. This end of wipe thing right now is a good example of this, where we're getting like inundated with a bunch of stuff at once, right? Like normals NHR changed, and then this Thursday is non-minted items for season 3 of Arena. And so same thing with this thing that we're talking about with removing solo duo queue. Maybe the last like month of next wipe, they remove solo duo HR, and we try 0 gear score only random trio HR just as an experiment. So a lot of these things as a 1 or 2 week experiment. Sorry, go on without me.
Hey, what are the other caveats? So non-minted, and is it confirmed that we can use uniques? What about artifacts?
Okay. This is, again, I get asked this question about 1 billion times a day, so I'm just going to answer it here. I don't know yet.
Okay.
during the interview, STF said something along the lines of he was thinking about it and he was thinking about trying it, but hasn't made a decision.
So unconfirmed.
So
okay.
It is an unconfirmed whether or not uniques will be allowed in. What is confirmed is that there is supposed to be. I don't know if this is 100%, but I think their goal is to have a new map rotation, and you will be able to use unminted gear. The map rotation might not make it in until next season, but next wipe. But my understanding is that it's supposed to be unminted and new map pool.
One of the other things is with the new map coming out, this year or whenever, that's one more queue, right? So like these things with playing like with more experiments and having like different queues, like Ken saying, or like a different mode, comes down to whether or not we have the player base to sustain that. And so if you do get rid of solo, duo, HR, and you focus in on like the 0 to hero, trios, randoms, like the amount of players that frees up to go elsewhere, but that would still be like a very popular game mode, is good for the game, right? Like we can all agree we have too many queues, and so now they're going to get rid of. I think aren't they getting rid of regions? So now it will be ping based for the queues. So they're going to combine supposedly like Seoul and Tokyo, and then other places like maybe US West. Either way, like we are increasing in a way like the amount, we're reducing the queues, so there will be more players everywhere. I think that's
give me one Chicago NA server. I'm down. Or Central America, I don't know, whatever. Just
I think NA you need 2 servers.
Yeah, we have a big ass country. Unlucky.
The country's big, the infrastructure's not great, and this game does not feel great with high ping.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
I tried.
And I consistently play on East servers, and the moment I get to play in Arena for the West servers and playing Ranger and Warlock, I'm just so much more happy hitting my curses and watching my arrows leave at the time I draw the fucking bowstring.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. For sure.
If there ends up being a like no queue selection like that, Vitch, as I saw in chat, somebody he was saying US and EU won't be able to queue together. I think it boils down to whoever the party leader is dictates where you queue. So if you're region locked to America and you invite somebody from EU, that EU person's going to queue into America with you. But I understand the concern of maybe not having LFG queue, but hopefully beginning of white player numbers, improvements to the game, gets more people playing, and maybe removal of solo queue means there will be plenty of people for an LFG queue in trios. Hopefully.
Yep.
I mean, historically it will.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Random topic, because I've talked about this on stream once or twice, and I'm just kind of curious what you guys think about a maximum gear score cap, like just period.
I'd be down.
Like
I'm still always down with it. Yes.
You have 225 plus to infinite. What if it was just like 225 to 500 or 6, whatever the number is? But like there's some cap, so I just can't bring in, unique Viola and a unique crossbow with a quick swap winless in my inventory and 15 purple pots, and like I don't know. Maybe it's not a great idea. It's always weird just seeing like somebody with 1200 gear score with 7 fucking weapons in their inventory. Feels a little weird.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the game does kind of also break once you get to a certain threshold of gear and power, and people are just like straight up just one-shotting each other.
Looking at you, Cam Soda. Looking at you. Sorry.
Well, and it removes incentive to actually play the game the way it was designed, right? Then it just becomes run through PvP. Like, why not just go play Arena? You can use your BIS in Arena except for unique. And yeah, there's almost no incentive to do anything in the dungeon. You're purely running through room to room looking for PvP and or bossing. And it's like,
God, that sounds good.
Yeah, well, that's what the arena's for, man. And except for the bossing part. Like,
nah, you need the people. I'm actually gonna do an L take here or a hot take, and I disagree with that, dude. Once you get to a power level, you want to protect that power level with everything you fucking can, and you want to outplay and outperform and outgear the other people that are trying to do the same thing.
So I'm not saying like it should be a low number. You should be very geared. I don't like the idea that you have a full biz gear set and then you have a second biz gear set in your inventory. You have 2 unique winlesses on top of your biz gear set and like a hot swap chest. Like that seems a little, I don't know.
The onus for that is on Iron Mace to prevent the problem with that sounds like hot swapping, or like, you know, before when we didn't have to reload. It's getting harder and harder to do things like that to get an advantage. Outside of like right now on my barb, I bring 4 weapons because I need my Zwei to fight a druid. And so like that part is good though, right? It's like the more stuff you bring in, the more prepared you are, like the better you are to protect yourself and your team.
Yeah. Well, you gotta bring a blue Zwei instead of a unique one.
Right.
That's one of the
choice.
When you talk about that sort of gear score,
it's like, fuck, yeah. If I'm gonna bring an artifact, I want to bring like 3 artifacts.
I just like the idea of actually being forced into the regular gameplay loop, because that always tends to be what most of the player base, at least from the experience, enjoys. Like when they said 50% played in the Squire lobbies, like why the fuck do you think that is? Because the gameplay loop is fun when you crack open a barrel and pick up something that's an upgrade. So capping gear score means that when you load into a run, maybe you've got a lad, but you have a white chest piece, or like you're actually still engaged in looking for something in the fucking dungeon that isn't crushing skulls, which is put, you know, it's not nice to force people into a particular gameplay style, but this is the game that's the gameplay loop. Right. That's the entire game. So
to that point is that, I mean, that could then even further solidify Arena as the endgame PvP, because you could make it to where Arena is where you get to bring everything you want. Take your whole fucking arsenal with you. But also, the dungeon, you have a limit.
So I'm not 100% sold on it. It was a random idea.
I like
it. It's a good idea to think about anyway. But you could also, another like little just thought experiment was maybe at end of wipe, you make it so there's a way to queue into an arena mode where you lose your gear. It's best of 1.
I think if you're gonna lose your gear, it should be like a best of 7, and then you lose.
Yeah.
Get some
shit.
That'd be like
rogues win a best of 1.
Friday night
in Arena. We call it the rogue tax. Most of the time, the first matchup, if they have a rogue, you're fucking one person's dead. Like at the start of that game, you didn't know there was a rogue. That first round is already over. You paid the rogue tax. Now you can play around the fact.
Wait. Hear me out. Let me check. All right, like Ken Cook here. Best of 7, right? Then the winning team, all the enemy gear goes into a middle chest, and then it's backyard pick'ems draft style. You know, you take a turn, pick a piece out of the chest until the chest is empty. Yeah. Holy crap!
We got to kill so bad immediately, and then distribute the loot to each other.
or you only get 3 pieces or something. But that is cooking. Like 2 hours, 1 Friday, once per wipe, best of 7, and it's just like the most intense shit. You have to have a minimum gear score of like 1,000.
I'll bring in a full artifact kit.
Big wager matches.
Yeah.
Big wager matches. You're getting into RuneScape territory with this one.
They're the highest roller.
Pink slips, yeah.
We've done some good work here today, fellas. We're already 2 hours. Yeah, I've only lost 65 subscribers just since we started. Like they definitely don't appreciate our takes. But hey, let's go ahead and beat the dead horse a little bit. And
I'm getting some death threats from Arcane chat, honestly. So
yeah, that guy really didn't like you. That was impressive.
You know, I gotta say, if there's any silver lining to removing solos and pissing off a bunch of people, it's that the worst people I've ever talked to in my life might go away.
There you go.
And that is an Odin take, not an Iron Man's take.
Well, I gotta tell you, be outed. So
there are so many terrible fucking people that play solos in this game that are just awful, and you can't have a conversation with them. You should kill yourself.
Are you telling me the same kind of people that don't want to interact with anybody and teammates in their social dungeon play video game are also like just really mean? And
having said that,
interesting.
Respectfully, of course, I'm the guy in the dungeon that is antisocial, but I'm still the nicest motherfucker you're going to meet.
No, you're very social. You're the most social
all the time. This is what I keep trying to say. Is you were literally looking at it like everyone who's like, fuck these guys for advocating for getting rid of solos. You're literally looking at a call that is 85, like 90% solo players.
Yep.
I don't think we can get that across enough. I've played the majority of this game solo, and I
literally 80% for me, probably. Yeah.
I'm advocating getting rid of my favorite game mode, which is duos, like because I think it would be better for the overall health of the game. Yep. People, it's crazy.
No,
we're all shooting ourselves in the foot here.
We're not saying all solo players are evil and antisocial. This is such a generalization.
Yeah, we just don't like
not all of them, just 100%.
Yeah.
Some people don't know that you're joking.
We are included in that diagram. I just think that we're trying to tell you, like, we're all the assholes, we're all the shitters, we're all the solo players. So
the explanation is that in general the some of the worst conversations or worst feedback, because I don't know. Obviously, it is a generalization, so it's not true of everyone. There are a lot of solo players who have very bad attitudes, who only think of themselves, which, surprise, it's a solo queue, and just literally don't want to hear what anyone else has to say. Whereas Iron Mace has listened to a very wide variety of players for a long time by trying a lot of different things and having a solo, duo, and trio queue. At this point, if they decide that they want to make the game 4 trios, at least in High Roller, normal's still there, I'm all for it. I have 2,500 hours in the game, which is on the low end in this call, and I would say 80% of this solo, and I still would be fine with them getting rid of it.
100%. If it means a better game in the long term, I will take the temporary drop, because everyone that's on the rage bus about this is going to watch the player numbers and revel and rejoice when they go down temporarily. If they do, maybe they don't.
And then 3 weeks later, when they're itching and they see me on stream having a great time with my random teammates having a laugh, they're gonna get back on and they're gonna,
Yep.
And I'm in the random, 0 HR queue with no fill, because probably a lot of people with no fills. Like, this is the important forum to have this conversation, because a lot of us in this call are primarily HR solo players, and we still think there's a way to make it work where you get rid of solo duo queue.
Yep. And the long-term
the
health
population
of the game better
in that queue would be fucking massive if we have random 0 gear score high roller. Everyone just clicks the button and they drop. You would have so many duos, solos, and random trios that it would just be it'd be fucking madness, and it'd be awesome.
Can we vent real quick about the game doomers? I know this isn't a Dark and Darker strictly topic, because this happens with every game basically. You know what happens when something happens to a game that I really just don't like and it keeps going in a direction I don't like? I just stop playing that game. I pay attention to the community every once in a while, and I look at what the updates are what's going on with the updates. And I know people are going to hear this and give me a aha gotcha moment where, oh, you want people to quit the game? No, that's not what I'm saying. The point is, sometimes things change and it's not always the way you want it. And sometimes you just decide, well, this game's not for me anymore. Destiny is a perfect example of this. I fell off that game years ago, despite it being a game I sunk thousands of hours into and loved dearly. But it just went in a direction I wasn't a big fan of. So I just stopped playing it. I didn't sit in their Discord and go, fuck you, your game's dying, you should kill yourself, everyone who plays this game is an idiot. This game's dead. Post screenshots of the player numbers, dead game. I don't understand this obsession that modern gamers have with spending so much time and energy sitting in a game's forums or in a Discord just to dooming about the game. Not even like, I'm afraid that this game is going to die because of bad decisions. Just everyone who plays this game is wrong, and I hope this game dies. What is that? I don't get that shit.
That's Nexon bots, actually.
I came
from Dark 8 million, and they hired a whole.
It happens in every game,
dude.
It happens every game.
Yep. All right. So we open it up to Q&A, and you guys can only ask us what ways we want to hang ourselves virtually. No more than 1 or 2 times, and then we got to cut it off.
How many spikes am I going to be impaled by?
Yes. Farmer Rick, we did talk about SSF. Everybody is a huge fan of it being timed with the beginning of wipe. Hopefully you can go back and catch the rest later. But yeah, we definitely talked about it. We are super excited for it as well. First question already down, and no one died. What else we got?
There's still time.
There's still time.
Where's Monk at?
Okay, Monk, go ahead. Ken, you got something?
Oh no, I was just reading that question. Where's Monk at? Like, what is that? What we want next? At the next class on like the chopping block?
That he said in the recent Korean Q&A that he had hoped to finish that this year. So that is for sure the next class that's coming. And I have to say we've done pretty well with Sork, right? Sork came out this wipe.
We didn't even talk about Sork.
Am I wrong?
Like, we didn't even talk about it. That was some huge changes to Sork.
Yeah, but like, so now we have a finished, like a whole finished class and like a couple month cycle.
Yeah.
So for sure they're getting better at deving. Like, there's no way with all the new modules we got, the new class. I don't know. I see Monk coming this year plus water map.
Well, what do we want? What do we want from Monk if we see a Monk? Like, I always wanted fist weapons. I want fist weapons. I want kicks. Punches.
Just get up and fucking duke it out.
I want wall jumping. I want movement tech.
Give me Tarkov leans too, you know. But just a Monk,
Wait, what would a lean do?
like
literally nothing but
left
look
to
cool.
right, but then while I swing, like
Yeah.
in my head, bob and weave.
If you dodged
I have something very exciting.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
And I have something very exciting to tell you. There actually is a lean in the game already. It's called the Goblin Dance.
Yeah,
Spam that
but
shit.
I want it built in, you know. Well, sorry, I didn't finish
Oh, well,
quest.
somebody didn't do their fucking quest.
Looks like
this
you
game is
played
quest to
like
win.
shit.
I want to
to
see
win.
a combo meter for Monk, where you have like little fires at the bottom of your screen above your health bar, like 5 that are empty, and every punch or kick you land adds 1, and if you miss, it resets. And when you get 5, you get to push your E, and I don't know what it does.
You just
an
made
AoE
Soul
roundhouse
Collector for
or some
monks.
shit.
It's a Mortal Kombat finisher move. Right?
Yeah, you say something out loud, and they know it's coming. They better block.
Rip their spine off. Holy shit! All right, down with that.
How many classes should there be? It sounds like right now they want 13, right? We're at 10, and then Monk, Paladin, Artificer. So 13 seems like a pretty decent number. But like, if it's a 10-year game, how many is too many? Like, is there a number?
So like,
no, there is not.
I mean, more classes is obviously more better, but I think like Armice might be going too fast in the more class direction when they could just focus on the stuff they already have and refine the classes they got, and then maybe develop classes a little more slowly. Not saying stop, but you got a lot already. We could use a little bit of wizard love, a little bit of bard love, a little bit of barb love before we work on monk and fucking artificer.
I think I would love to see a poll maybe to see what the general consensus from the community is. My hunch tells me that people would, if they had to pick between monk and like subclassing or like just greatly expanding the build diversity for classes, I feel like most people would rather have more of what we already have than take monk. If it was a choice between the two, maybe we can get both in a perfect world. But I'm with Canada. I think the sorcerer is really good. It's one of my favorite things to come out of the game recently. I don't play it as much right now because I do think the way I'm currently playing the game, it's just I don't have as much fun with it. But I think it's a really fun and interesting class. For all intents and purposes, monk could be an amazing addition. But I just wish that there was more cool shit I could do with the classes I already like. Like I've been saying for the longest time, I wish there was like Spear Slayer. Like you can only wear like medium armor and you can specialize with spear and just be really good at boxing people in hallways. Like that would be so fun, and I would play the game around that.
You know what that sounds like? It sounds kind of like a new class, only it's a new spec on a class that already exists.
Exactly.
Who would have thought?
Phalanx Warrior.
So with way less like worse, work. I mean,
yeah, I would rather see them go in the subclassing direction, build out training system correctly versus just adding new classes. Fix what we already have, add character progression and development that makes some kind of class identity within the existing classes. So even if it's just 2, add paladin as a subclass to a cleric. Like that to me is the route to go. But I'm definitely down for seeing monk as its own separate class. I'm down for seeing artificer, I think, although you could argue that maybe there's a route where artificer could be a subclass of a sorcerer or a wizard potentially. But yeah, I think adding new classes is probably one of the least important things they can do for the game right now versus optimizing existing, fixing simple things, quote unquote simple. Since SDF can come in one day, I almost wish he wouldn't have said that. Like, oh yeah, one day I fixed.
Right?
Agreed,
dude.
Oh my god,
I
think it's more
hot swap.
More. I know what he was trying to say.
I know. But like he's trying to say like, I'm the shit. That's how much stuff I can crank out when I'm not distracted.
No, I don't think that's necessarily it. I think it's more this was something that was because he made it sound like it was a simple fix. And I think it was more of the fact that literally so much of his time was dedicated to everything except for working on the game.
Yes.
That he just didn't have the time to deal with it.
But
now he's the one he wanted to make. Arcane is the point that he did make. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know the way he wanted it to be portrayed and taken by the community. And I understood that the moment it left his lips, and I immediately thought the same thing. I was like, oh, you're telling me this could have been done fucking months ago. Like, I get that frustration.
And or that there's no one else there that's capable of doing that or was allowed to do that. See, I have a hard time believing that other people aren't capable, that they just weren't allowed to. And maybe the biggest thing, holy shit, we didn't talk about.
Working on other stuff.
The biggest thing we did not talk about that came out of that last tavern table is the idea that Terry very strongly inferred, or I guess we're the inferers, but he led us to believe that SDF is taking not a back seat, but that he's starting to release the reins of control and put trust into the team leads to make more decisions and be able to more autonomously operate within Iron Maze. And if they follow through on that, that may be the biggest piece of information that we've got in a year and a half, 2 years since the Steam announcement. Like, that may have been the biggest bombshell of that entire thing. And
I think that's very important. I've been very vocal. I felt like this has been an issue for a long time. I've always referred to it as like the George Lucas problem, where it's like famously George Lucas making the prequels was like a control freak while making those movies, and it, then that him being a control freak,
awesome.
I mean, they're novelty. Okay, I like Revenge of the Sith has a soft spot in my heart.
So you don't like Jar Jar?
No. Anyway, point being is that he was a control freak. Everything had to go through him, and then he kind of like bottlenecked the entire production process, making the overall product a lot worse and more expensive than it had to be. And it feels like we might have a similar situation with SCF. And I'm not saying that as like a jab at SCF. Obviously, when you're very passionate and love your project, you want to have full autonomy on like how it's made and how it's run. And that works for a while. But as you get bigger and your team starts to grow, you start to become a bottleneck in the machine. And that's kind of feels like where we are. Terry and SCF like admitting that on stream publicly, I think is a huge step and a very important one. And I hope they follow through. I hope they weren't just words.
Well, it was the acknowledgement was that it was a moment of introspection and bruised egos, but also a moment of acknowledgement of the fact that they were trying to run the team as if it was still 10 people in a gym, but it's not that anymore, and it's grown beyond that. And they realize that there are people who have stuck it out despite, all the issues that were talked about on the stream, legal or otherwise, and are passionate about the game. And these team leads have shown that they're competent enough that they should be given control to try new things. And like, look at the maps. Like the map guys have been cranking shit out. Remember back when they were talking about the ice map and how everyone kind of like remarked at how sick the ice map looked and like how well designed some of the modules were. And they were like, we're really impressed by what the map team has done. We're like starting to become more confident in their ability to create maps. Look where we are now, dude. The new modules that have popped up in Crypts are so good, dude.
Yep.
They're so good. Every single one of them is a fucking massive W.
You know what's killing it? Dude, the Crystal Sword animation guy, that guy is putting in overtime. Holy shit, he is every patch. He's just pumping.
He didn't put one out this last patch, and I'm kind of upset with him.
He's working on something special. Don't you worry.
I was gonna say, what the hell has he been doing then?
Long story short, basically just saying what Arcane said in more words is, they've acknowledged that it's time to take a little bit of a step back on the control freak side of things and to give the teams more chances. And in a sense, also give them a chance to fail. Terry used the helicopter parent analogy of like constantly hovering over everybody. And now they're going to go back and just say, okay, we got to let you guys try shit and fuck up. And it came with the little caveat, which is like, hey, if this is wrong next patch, it's not on us anymore. Don't blame us. It was the other guys, which I thought was pretty funny. But in fairness to them, when you are the one in control of everything, all of the successes are credited to you, but all of the failures are also credited to you. So I'm excited. I think it is a really big deal, and not enough people are talking about it.
Yep,
it's probably the biggest thing, biggest sentence like in the entire table talk was that like one that went under the radar.
Like since the game came to Steam, that's probably the biggest thing they've talked about.
No doubt. All right, what else we got? You guys got any questions from the chat?
Somebody asked in chat about
the in-boss chat, the best chat.
Somebody asked in chat about the Epic thing. This is just like an off-the-cuff answer, not an Iron Mace announcement, but I know they're working on a fix for it. They're working on a migration, so it's a priority issue. It was in the announcements a couple days ago. They're working on a fix on it.
And for
it'll be fixed soon.
And for those who need the workaround, just ! Epic Games. There was a big Reddit thread about it right when it happened, where somebody figured out where you could take the files from Steam and then put them in your Epic folder and do some computer shit, and you can still play. But that's also something that nobody brings up. I'm sure we lost a huge portion of the population from all the free Epic Games accounts.
For sure.
Yeah, they can't update, right? So they can't play. So if they
Correct.
don't have the desire to like dive into the podcasts or like Reddit or whatever, they're probably just like, I don't know, I can't play. I'll just play something else.
Yep.
And when that gets patched Friday, alongside the release, I mean, what do you guys think? Friday or Thursday, whatever day you want to call it, with the non-minted arena coming out, isn't that going to also bring back like a shitload of players? Like yesterday, Sunday morning at like 4 a.m. when I woke up, there was like 20K online. So non-minted arena. I'm finally gonna play the arena. I never do it, but if it's non-minted, I'm fucking in, dude. Because then I can play any class, any subclass, any gears, and I could trade with like Ken. Like last season, Ken just gave me a warlock set. It's way easier to play if you just use whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a question from this chat here for So Bad Strange. How many hours did it take you to get all of the bosses down in the game?
I've never killed Wyvern, so yet to be discovered.
What about the
What,
rest?
go
of
on,
them?
go on an hour 5,000?
What
What
about
are you, an hour 5,000? Not, still waiting for that Wyvern?
I'm still
yeah.
waiting.
Yep.
I think I get the intent of the question though. Like
Sorry.
Let's say Cave Troll, Ghost King, Lich, and Cyclops. Give
All right, before he answers, I'm at 5,000 hours roughly. I still haven't soloed Warlord. I still can't do Cave Troll.
Well, you play Wizard too.
And I can only kill Cyclops on Warlock. I am dog shit. So
that's impressively bad.
I think it
depends
on your intent. Like if you actually wanted to sit down,
I'm sure you could.
Like with a coach or YouTube video, so for instance, when I started
learning
boss and solo boss, I looked at
Banshee the first time today.
Who was the dude that always did troll like all the time? And he did a lot of boss videos.
Mojito. I've watched his video for probably.
I've watched Mojito's video like 1,000 times.
Actually,
learn troll.
It's really funny that you bring it up.
I sat down. I played with Mojito for the first time in Midnight Walkers a few weeks ago. I'm like, Mojito, I watched your troll killing guide 10 times, and I spent hundreds of hours, and I still can't kill it. Obviously, it's your video's fault.
Yeah,
that's what I told him.
That sounds like a good content day for you. All right, get him to coach you through troll. That'd actually be a lot of fun,
dude. Okay, so what's really funny is it's really funny you bring that up because my buddy was telling you about who started playing the game again recently with this wipe after a long break. He's like, literally just cannot fucking kill troll, and I'm like, dude, what is their major malfunction with the troll? I don't get what your problem is with this thing. He's like, dude, I don't know, it just fucks me up. I've watched all the videos. I know you got to rotate right, and there's if you got a fast weapon, you can rotate right, but if you go slow weapon, you want to go left, and you do this. And I know you can hellfire it. I'm like, here, watch my screen, and I screen shared to him to show him how to do it on Warlock. And he's like, I can do it on Warlock sometimes. I'm like, cool. Here's how you do it with a halberd. It's really, really easy. Cannot fucking do it. Maybe Ken is just not meant for bossing, Well,
the thing is, I've always been surrounded by these really awesome jacked bard players, and they just kill everything for me. So,
I don't play bard.
I'm just saying, even you have bard your team, you just let them do their thing.
Somewhere Majora is smiling.
Yeah, the bards say, "Be right back." About to one phase.
Exactly.
But honestly, the truth is, if you have the intent to do almost anything in this game, you can do it pretty quick if you're uninterrupted by PvP.
Yes.
You really lock it in, and you W key to troll with a rogue over and over. Let's just say, I think 8 hours. But you have to already have the building blocks to get there. But I think any boss in this game, 8 hours, if you lock the fuck in, and that's pretty generous. It's still a lot of time.
Yeah, I had the same experience.
Yeah.
They're all beatable.
Yeah.
With all my game fundamentals, just going in for the first time, looking at Spectral Knight and going, I'm going to master this son of a bitch. It took me 8 hours or 6 hours or so to get the first kill.
Mm-hmm.
It's just learning, But that's, of course, again, with all the game fundamentals are already unlocked. I know what the hell I'm doing to every point. So it's assuming you have those fundamentals, about 8 hours.
Or for instance, Spectral Knight, which I still think is one of the coolest fights fucking ever. I was like, okay, I'm just getting shit on nonstop. I can't land any hits. I'm gonna do Warlock. I take less damage from undead, and then I do a little bit of healing.
I was there for you.
Even then, that was so easy, dude. And end boss and distortion had already spent the whole weekend doing it. When finally I was like, okay, if a fucking Elden Ring player is taking 3 days to beat a boss, it's okay if I do.
The funniest thing about that was the first time I killed Spectral Knight was the first time I ever tried, because So Bad was like, let's go kill Spectre. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to fight this thing. It just came out. I haven't even fucking practiced it. He's like, yeah, let's just go kill it. We were geared as fuck in HR, and it was like cleric, fighter, bard, and we just like killed it in like 90 seconds and just healed through it. And I blocked all of its hits, and I was like, huh, I don't know why everybody's like so up in arms about this boss fight. It's actually not that hard at all. We just fucking steamrolled the fucking thing, and then I talked to End Boss about it. He's like, dude, it's such a cool boss fight. It's like a dance of swords, and I'm clashing and parrying. And I'm like, yeah, I just kind of blocked him and hit him and died.
You're always engaged. He's literally, you're not at any point going, oh, what am I supposed to do next? He is dictating the fight and gives you an option, and you either take a swing or you take a dive or you take a block, but it's always there. And that's why I hate it versus the Banshee. The Banshee is just such a skid mark of, oh, okay, what are you doing? I can't hit you.
Do we have a boss fight for like wizard players? Like where we can just like kill them with magic?
Go fucking kill Banshee.
I think we do. It's like every monster on the map.
Yeah,
every monster is a boss fight. Oh, like actually.
Oh no, you're no. I see what you're saying. Now. Every monster is a boss fight. Yeah. Brutal. All right, any more questions? We've been going for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
How long?
Oh, there we go. We got our Aaron Rodgers comment.
Oh no.
Who?
Overdue.
I didn't practice the boss in development. I literally have not practiced any of the bosses on test server a single time. I let it be a surprise for myself. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of things.
There's a test server.
There's also a lot of things that, like for example, 2 weeks ago I sold all of my diamonds, having no idea that they were going to buff the diamonds.
Paper hands, you coward.
I intentionally keep myself blind on certain things as long as if I don't have to know about it for either helping film with trailers or to work on developer casts, I intentionally keep myself blind about it because I'd rather just not know. Because it also makes it easier for me to not slip up and accidentally tell people shit I'm not supposed to.
But also, it's probably more fun too to experience like the game. Yeah,
I just like keep myself in the dark. I like to let there be some surprises.
Mm-hmm.
There's some shit I can't avoid because of the work I do, so I like to keep some spoilers for myself.
All right, gents. Unless you guys have any objections, I think we call it a day.
I think that's a good spot.
That's a great pod, boys. Well done.
All right,
everybody in all of the chats, even the ones that hate us right now, thank you for tuning in.
I can't wait to.
Don't let them get you in. They're only solo players. They don't matter. Okay.
Oh god damn it!
It's in jest. It's in jest.
He makes it. The thing is, I think he makes it intentionally hard for them to understand when he's joking.
That's why it's good.
It's on purpose.
This was episode 36. I think we will be back before our guest appearance on the Dorkest Hour, but just in case we're not, make sure to tune in to your favorite streamer on this podcast to get that update. I'll try to make a community announcement on the YouTube channel where this podcast is posted if we are going to be on the Dorkest Hour before our next episode, which will be episode 37. And with that, thanks again, all. We'll see you in the next one.
Later. GG's.
Cheers.
GG's.
All right, you guys can all find me at So Bad Strange on every platform that matters. And frankly, I'm the best creator in the category.
He's a solo player.
Hear what you're saying.
I got Pole yesterday. I got 2 polarizing prayers today and Cinder. It's not streamer luck. I'm just better.
All right.
I just want to clarify that I was the reason he got that pulverizing, the second one.
Stay poor.
I thought for sure he was going to sign off with stay poor, man. Ken stole it from me.
I hear what you're saying.
Well, and then